Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has Sage Chakra in rwby. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by EternalKing and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. It was the dead of the night and there lay a figure, legs crossed. It was a strange sight to see, as the forests of Remnant were very dangerous to be at, especially at night. This figure was known by many names. The Toad Sage, most unpredictable ninja, the charismatic unstoppable Dumbus, the hero, the savior. This was Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of Kurama the Kyuubi. He sat with his eyes closed, contemplating his situation, unmindful of the red eyes and growls coming from the surrounding trees. It has been a few years since the event that came to be known as the Fourth Great Shinobi War. It seemed as if peace would reign, and while Naruto was overjoyed by it, he felt as if he still had a purpose to fulfill. This led to him exploring the elemental nations, meeting up with all the people he knew from missions or journeys like Shion, Koyuki, Aoi from the game, and Shizuka. And one day when he was training, or rather, messing around with Kurama's chakra, he blasted himself to the end of the world. Literally. He had somehow blasted himself to the end of the world and was surprised to find a barrier in place. He studied the barrier and had gathered the 5 kage in order to find what the next course of action should be. Flashback. Wait, so you're saying that this barrier is keeping the elemental nation separated from a whole separate world? Said Tsunade, who specifically emphasized the last 3 words. Basically, Kurama explained to me that the old man sage had told the Bijuu of stories of a whole separate world. Although they just wrote off these stories as bedside stories, that barrier proves otherwise. Confirmed Naruto. Well, if this other world you speak of exists, then I say we let it stay as it is. There is no need to burden ourselves with these grim you speak of. Said Inoki. I must agree with Inoki Naruto, if we go outside of that barrier, who's to say that those people don't decide to attack us? Proclaimed A. I believe that we should first focus on ourselves. If we decide to go outside this barrier, if we are not careful, we may just enter another war. Whether it is with these outsiders or with others within the elemental nations. May put in her own 2 cents. I agree with Mizukage-san. However, I do believe there is another option here. Said Gaara as he gave a small smile. All of the cage looked interested in what this option could be before following his line of vision to the person who gave them this information. This person was currently standing beside the circular table and looked on with a confused expression as he realized he was being stared at, releasing a small "A." Preposterous. Yelled out Inoki. Naruto is important to our world. If he goes into these foreign lands, there is a chance he will die. He is still one of the sole remaining Jinchuriki, not to mention that as the savior and hero, if he disappears, it would cause a panic. Perhaps we should ask for the opinion of the one we are talking about. Calmingly said Tsunade. Ah, well, I believe that we should reach out to these people. Said Naruto with a small smile. The cage waited for him to explain, although both Inoki and A looked rather annoyed at his decision. Think about it, I mean, even with every negative, there comes an equal or greater positive, Naruto said. Naruto explained to them what he meant. In the Rakuto Senin stories, these people seem to have technology already superior to their OWN. Think of technology in the real world from the 1800s, and stuff like flintlock pistols, which said a lot since this was during Hagoromo's, so their technology would have no doubt improved. Even if breaking down the barrier brought the Grim to their world, the shinobi would be able to fight against them, and it would be even easier if they were assisted by the technology of the new world. As Naruto listed every positive that could come, he saw that both Gaara and Tsunade were all on board, while Mei decided to put her trust in him, and that both A and Inoki wanted to support yet were reluctant. Naruto smiled, flashing his white teeth as he exclaimed, don't worry, perhaps at first we may not get along with them. But then again, neither did we, yet here we are now. United and in peace. His words immediately put their worries to rest as they looked to each other, then the other cage, before they looked to Naruto, and asked if he needed anything to assist him. The cage knew that if anyone could do this type of mission, it would be Naruto, who had such charisma and such a personality that he would be able to make sure that those outside of the barrier would not declare war on them. But if they proved to be dangerous and would not change their mind and declare war on the elemental nations, then the cage knew that Naruto would absolutely massacre them, even if the cage would rather he didn't. But Inoki posed a great question. I do not believe their government would take lightly to us should they find out on their own. Naruto scoffed. Oh please, this world isn't quite like ours in terms of following orders. They may have governments, but the people are those with the real power. If the people trust us, then any backwater politicians can't say shit. Tsunade and Gaara chuckled. Well, if anyone can somehow gain the trust of entire nations without a problem, then I will put my faith in you, my friend. I remember the war vividly. You gained the trust and faith of the entire army within hours, if not minutes, upon meeting them. As someone who knows the difficulty of what it's like to be a Jinchuriki, I can feel proud to have been one because of you. You know I'll always bet on you, Naruto. But have you talked to the Biju about this? I'm sure those tailed beasts have something in mind. Well, I'm not going to bring them with me, that's one way to cause some real conflict. Besides, I've learned that the monsters have a little reaction to both regular and tailed beast chakra. I'm better off leaving them for now, and before you ask, don't worry about my chakra. I already have a little plan for that. And before I go, I need to ask a quick favor. They replied in unison. Anything? I need a little secret identity to make things smoother, so to speak. I have this mask from a past experience I'd like you to make. Flashback end. He had made a small hole in the barrier and traveled across the sea he had been in. He ended up in the land he would later identify as Vital. He had discreetly observed the strange new world. With help from clones and certain people, he learned of their dust, their weapons, their technology, their culture, almost everything that was considered basic and then some. However, Naruto discovered something that nearly made his chakra burst out from the seal it was within, and the only thing that kept him from doing so was the fact that he would have murdered more than a few dozen people in the process as a side effect. Discrimination. The racism toward the fauna sickened him, and after a quick trip to the shinobi homeland, he convinced the cage to allow him to send faunas over there. It helped that they needed people experienced in remnants technology to help them use it. As for how they gained that technology, well, Naruto just liberated them from some criminals and rich people who would simply not care for their stuff. Of course, Naruto acted like, well, Naruto, and decided to fight against criminals every now and again. This caused him to butt heads with a white fang, a tattoo-wearing trigger-happy bitch, in his own words, and some guy with a cane. And naturally, Naruto was able to pull something off that no one else could by convincing some of the White Fang members into quitting and giving them asylum in the shinobi homeland. He didn't want to accidentally kill anybody or have anybody discover what he is, so he sealed a lot of his abilities and put on a disguise by putting on the top of a mask inspired by him from a Jinjutsu he was once put in, think Menma from Road to Ninja, and a mouth mask he liked to call a Kakashi mask. Naruto had a busy time as he decided to go into work as a mercenary and worked on his creating skill in order to make several weapons that would also serve as limiters. He met many skilled warriors, but had only been able to unlock his aura after a meeting with a hairy old man who introduced himself in true Jiraiya fashion as the sage that conquers the heavens and that beautiful women fall over. Amused by the perverted old man, who went by the name Wukong apparently, he found that the old man was not only a faunus, but also very strong. Wukong was actually very perceptive and had fought the truth out of Naruto. And while Wukong still lost, Naruto was surprised that the old man forced him to take off his limiters but decided to give him the truth since lying wasn't really Naruto's style. It hadn't taken long, especially since Wukong insisted for Naruto to be trained in his newfound aura abilities, where he had by fate or by luck unlocked his semblance, which he thought fit him rather well. With the help from his new friend who surprisingly had many connections in the world, Naruto was able to get the trust of several people who he could trust. He was brought to his current situation. Surrounded by a bunch of killer monsters in a dark forest. Or as he liked to call it, Saturday. He was only resting before he decided to go to where he believed a criminal's hideout was, and from what he could sense, he wasn't the only one who knew where it was. The question there was if these people he could sense were friendly. But he could find out later. First off, he needed to deal with the surrounding grim. Naruto stood up as the moonlight had shined over him. His golden-colored hair had been grown into a ponytail that was smooth, had gone to the middle of his back and was no longer as spiky as it was years ago. Instead, it was now smooth and soft as it, deceptively, really was. Parts of his ponytail and the few remains of his spiky hair had been dyed red so he could feel closer to his mom. As he grew older, he matured, which transferred into his clothing as he no longer wore orange to get attention like he did before. However, since arriving in Remnant, he would wear different clothing and armor. Right now Naruto was currently wearing black shoes, while the rest of his body was covered by the Akatsuki cloak as he wore it to represent the dreams of Konan, Nagato, and their friend Yuhiko. He just added a hood to it to cover up his golden hair. He still had the top of his Anbu mask and his Kakashi mask on. As the Grim walked out of the shadowy forest, it was revealed to be one pack of Beelzebubs and Ursi each. Okay then, Naruto smirked, who wants the honor of being slaughtered first? All the Grim roared and charged at Naruto together. Their natural instincts told them that this man was their enemy. Naruto pulled out of his sleeves one of the weapons that he learned to use. In both of his hands was a pair of black tambo that would merge into one big staff. He had yet to come up with a name for it, but the weapons were normal and wouldn't shoot any dust bullets or have the ability to incorporate dust into it. As the Grim were within feet of Naruto, he entered the state he liked to call hypertension. This was when he started to see things in slow motion because of the amount of adrenaline running in him. Well, this was something any trained warrior could do, it was pronounced more than the average because of his shinobi training and his already high reflexes. Naruto knocked aside the left claw of the Beowulf that was closest to him with his right tambo, this caused it to stab the Ursa that was on its right. He dashed forward in between two Ursi and started to hit both of them one after the other, his tambo was able to strike both of them hard and after swiping at one's leg to get it slightly airborne, he kicked it away. Hard, right into a group of Beowulfs who had been completely crushed by the force of Naruto's kick and the Ursa's size. Then he turned around, jumped and swung down at the other Ursa's head, completely smashing it in. While he was still in the air, 3 Beowulfs had jumped up with their fangs bared simultaneously. With 2 Grim in front of him and 1 in back of him, he used his tambo to block the fangs of the 2 in front of him while kicking the one behind him with both feet. This caused him to ricochet into a tree where 2 Grim had been impaled. He turned around and held his tambo horizontally to stop the Ursa in front of him from clawing at him. Naruto smirked before breaking the Grim's paw with his other tambo. He flipped over the Ursa and was face to face with a Beowulf that almost looked surprised to see him. "This me?" Naruto said before he struck the Beowulf across the snout, killing it instantly. "Come on. You guys will need to try harder than that." As Naruto shouted this, his mask had started to glow a menacing yellow. Then he charged to the Grim, but not before slamming the Ursa with a broken paw that was behind him into the tree. As Naruto killed one Grim after the other, he slowly builded up his aura, which just like his chakra, was massive. He charged his aura into his tambo, this caused them to be covered in his golden aura. Then he combined both of his tambo to create a staff that was the size of half of his body. He swung his staff diagonally down to the left and his aura slammed into all the Grim and knocked down some of the trees. Think like the beams coming from Blake during season 2 of rwby when they fight the giant robot. As Naruto observed all the broken bodies in front of him, he couldn't help but think, damn, I really destroyed this clearing. And boy was it destroyed, the trees that weren't knocked down had been scorched by Naruto's aura and the ground had its grass completely removed from his final blast. Naruto decided he had spent enough time in the clearing and went toward the criminal headquarters. Chapter end. As Naruto crept upon the enemy headquarters, he noticed a pair of hunters going inside too. He wondered if it would be a good idea to confront them. Before deciding anything, he gave them a look over. He spotted a rather attractive blonde woman who was wearing a white shirt and a black skirt. He wasn't sure why, but the thing that stood out the most were her stern face and her riding crop. Beside her was a man with gray hair with formal clothes and spectacles. What stood out most for this man was not his cane, but the emotions that Naruto could feel coming off of him. When he was a teenager, Naruto could only sense negative emotions, but as he grew older he trained that ability and could even sense emotions like happiness. And right now Naruto was sensing regret and sadness within this man. Naruto decided that these two were trustworthy. And while many of his old friends and comrades might call him foolish for being ready to trust these strangers, Naruto was always a good judge of character. He snuck behind them and got ready to give them a jump scare. "Hey there," Naruto said in a cheerful voice. He saw the attractive blonde woman jump up while the gray-haired man calmly turned around. "Now before you decide to attack me, I just want to say that I don't mean you any harm. If you don't know me, I'm the Naruto," was interrupted before he got to finish. "You are the mercenary known simply as Akatsuki or Red Dawn. Renowned for taking highly dangerous jobs for relatively small prices. You are also rather outspoken in your morals. Correct?" the gray-haired man said. Naruto was rather surprised that this man knew his mercenary alias, but his mask and his Akatsuki cloak would hide any body language that showed his surprise, if there were any. He decided to just nod and see where this man would take the conversation. "Tell me, Mr. Akatsuki, what brings you over to a White Fang hideout at this time of night?" Naruto could tell that his man was going to try and get answers one way or another, and there was no real point in trying to hide why he was there. So Naruto answered without hesitation, "I was here to bust the White Fang's operation over here. And also try to convince some of the members to abandon the White Fang." This time the blonde woman responded, "And exactly how were you going to do that, Mr. Akatsuki?" Naruto contemplated if it would be a good idea to hit on her, but even he could tell that it would be a bad idea. "Well, I was gonna ask nicely. If it wasn't for the fact he wanted to try and look professional, Naruto would have started his nervous habit of scratching the back of his head. I see then. Tell me, Mr. Akatsuki, would you mind if Glinda and I accompany you?" This was when Naruto noticed the gray-haired man look at the attractive woman who he knew now as Glinda when she made a move to protest. "Be my guest," Naruto plainly said. The trio snuck into the hidden base from the side. Naruto's experiences in sneaking into these bases were helpful because the White Fang mostly kept their bases the same in order to save time. While usually if Naruto was in a group he would start talking, there was just an atmosphere that made him want to be quiet. As they passed the constantly empty hallways, two things popped into Naruto's mind. 1. He didn't know why Glinda and the gray-haired man were doing here, granted, he felt they had a good reason and it didn't really matter what it was, but still. And 2. The hallways were never supposed to be this empty. And of course, just as he thought this, the group had walked through a door, thinking it was to another hallway, only for it to lead into a large circular room that could easily hold 200 people with a ceiling that was pretty high. The worst part? It was filled with White Fang members. And giant robots, Naruto screamed this in his own mind. The one that stood out the most amongst the White Fang members were a pair of faunas that looked like rhinos, a faunas that had red hair and had a white mask with a flame pattern near its eyeholes that covered his eyes, and a female faunas that had wings coming out of her back. Naruto guessed that these were the captains. Naruto realized that this was a bad situation to be in, but he couldn't help thinking, how did they know we were here? Before he even got a word in, the faunas with red hair calmly said, "Kill the humans." All of the White Fang except for the captains gave a battle cry as they ran to their defeat. So this is a conundrum, isn't it? Naruto said calmly to his newly found allies. For some reason the White Fang decided to surround them and insult the intruders. This gave said intruders time to talk. "Well, I can't say that we were expecting a fight," Ozpin said just as calmly. "I hope you aren't expecting me to protect you without payment," joked Naruto. Ozpin chuckled. "That won't necessary. After all, that is what Glinda here is for." Of course, while these two were ignoring the death threats and the insults, Glinda was actually cautious and decided to get the two back on the situation. "Sir, I highly doubt that now is the time for this, after all." Glinda stopped to look at the two males. As they looked back she said, "We do have to clean up these delinquents." Ozpin looked surprised and chuckled. "Oh my. You must be in a rather good mood if you're making jokes." Naruto froze. That was a joke. When both of the hunters looked at him he started sweating bullets a little. Mostly from Glinda's piercing gaze. Before he could say anything, one of the White Fang got annoyed that these filthy humans dared to ignore them and charged to Naruto, who was in the center. Naruto swiftly put him down by sticking his leg out, stopping the faunas, and then pinning him to the floor. "Can't you see that we were having a conversation?" Glinda decided to make another one of her stiff jokes by saying, "It seems that this one must be taught some manners." Ozpin simply chuckled at how Glinda tried making another joke. Naruto kicked the faunas currently under his foot up in the air with the tip of his foot, and while the White Fang member was in the air, he kicked him into the crowd, knocking several of them out. Naruto stepped forward in the front, with Glinda on his left and Ozpin on his right. He looked at the White Fang and said, "I hope you are all ready to face the wrath of the desert Tanuki." As he was saying this, a new pair of weapons slid out of his sleeves. In his left hand was a shield that was shaped after Shukaku's head, and in his right was a giant segmented whip that was shaped after Shukaku's tail. It was hidden by his cloak, but both weapons were connected by a chain that was the color of sand. I do hope that you all don't mind being beaten soundly." Ozpin's words caused the faunas that heard him grit their teeth as he didn't make a move to pull out a weapon. Unknown to them, Ozpin was skilled enough that he could just use a cane and beat them. "I would ask you all to lay down your swords, but I can see that isn't happening anytime soon." Glinda flicked her riding crop out and started to gather her aura. All of the warriors stood tensely. And one person charged first with a battle cry. Chapter end. An unnamed and unimportant White Fang member was the first to charge at the group of hunters and mercenary. He tried to slash at Naruto only for him to come into contact with Naruto's Shukaku head-like shield, which he named Gaara's Protection in honor of his good friend, or GP for short. This left the faunas open as Naruto wrapped the tail-like whip, named Tanuki's Bloodlust TBL for short, around the criminal and swung him toward the crowd of White Fang that had started to follow into the battle. As he brought his arm forward in a swing, the tail-like whip extended and the spikes on it seemed to become spikier. The criminal faunas seemed to not care that Naruto just used one of their own to knock out some of their comrades. And charged at them. Naruto looked back at Ozpin and Glinda and joked, "Don't make me need to protect you guys, as pleasant as you two are I will charge you." With those words being said, he rushed into the crowd of enemies in front of him with Gaara's Protection in front of him. The two teachers did not get a chance to reply as they were surrounded. The trio of faunas jumped and kicked at Naruto. The one in the middle used both legs, while the one on Naruto's left used her left leg, and the last one on the opposite side used his right leg. Naruto charged aura into Gaara's Protection, which caused it to grow bigger, and it would now cover his upper torso. As the trio slammed their legs on his shield, he began to charge aura into his shield again, this time to a more specific part, its mouth. Right as the faunas on the side were about to slam the leg that was still in the air onto the shield, they became blown back by sand. This was one of the special properties that Naruto put into his weapon, Gaara's Protection, and TBL gave Naruto something he normally did not have. The power of magnetic and sand release. However, they were more special than that. Gaara's protection and Tanuki's bloodlust were not the only weapons he had based on the tailed beasts. Each had their own special properties, and he had sealed the Biju chakra that he got from them into the weapon that was supposed to match them. These were some limiters that Naruto made for himself with Wukong's help. Before he created the weapons, it was easy to channel the Biju chakra into himself and use their abilities, at least this way nobody would bat an eye because it was a weapon. Naruto kept channeling his aura into Gaara's protection. Sand was coming out of the mouth area, as if it were water being poured sideways out of glass. The White Fang saw as golden sand poured out from the masked intruder's shield. It was manipulated into a circle around him, rising higher and higher as more sand was streaming. While the White Fang were unsure of what was happening, their natural survival instincts told them that they should attack now, and so attack they did. However, the first few to charge had found they were unable to move their legs. They looked down and saw the golden sand had somehow stopped their advances. The White Fang split their task between helping their comrades out of Naruto's subtle trap and attacking an unslouching Naruto who was almost in a sphere of sand. Only the part in front of his face and some of his torso were uncovered, the sand from the top looking as if slime. The White Fang shot a hail of bullets toward Naruto. The sphere of sand was mostly unaffected, but seemed as if it was absorbing the bullets. Ripples across the surface appeared every time a bullet hit it. The White Fang that were trapped by the sand were now free as the sand blocked the closing opening of Naruto's spherical defense. Eventually Naruto was in a perfect sphere defense, with the White Fang no longer shooting at him, the sand was able to harden completely. Inside the sphere was Naruto, who was connecting the sand to Tanuki's bloodlust's tip. Once knowing that it was connected, he wondered if he should prepare the battlefield more by scattering more sand or if he should just attack. Naruto had grown up, so he was no longer the reckless and overconfident child teenager he once was. But after months of facing opponents who were weaker than him, as well as defeating absolute monsters like Kagaya and Madara, he had become slightly arrogant. This was why he decided that prepping the battlefield was unnecessary. Naruto faced forward with Gaara's protection close to his chest, and his arm with Tanuki's bloodlust was in a lazy back-scratching position from the top. The top of Tanuki's bloodlust was attached to the inside walls of the sand sphere. He removed the sand below his feet and made sure it would be ready to reconnect immediately. Gripping the handle of Tanuki's bloodlust either, he slashed down with the sphere passed above him and into the air. Before any of the White Fang could react, the ball that was attached to Tanuki's bloodlust slammed into their forefront. Naruto swung it around as quick as he could. While some of the White Fang were smashed by the ball, others had the misfortune of having the spikes from Tanuki's bloodlust slam into their bodies, with only their auras to thank for saving their lives. With a quarter of his own enemies down, Naruto decided it was time for a finishing move. He brought back the morning star like Tanuki's bloodlust back. He set Gaara's protection on his back before crouching down and jumping high into the air. With Ozpin and Glinda both decided that words were unneeded in this situation. Both for trying to give the bloodthirsty White Fang the easy way by surrendering and talking to each other. Glinda flicked her riding crop at the duo of Franus, charging at the hunter and huntress. A vertical wall from the ground appeared once the duo jumped at them, slamming into their chests hard enough to knock them out. She flicked her riding crop again, and the wall shattered and pieces set alight. She manipulated the pieces to circle around her for protection, as it would blow up any dust bullets, and no one there was stupid enough to charge into the defense she set up. Several White Fang only had a moment to notice something appearing at their feet before they were encased in ice. The ice shattered and those encased fell to the ground. Glinda noticed several others of the White Fang loading up their guns with fire dust bullets. With a wave of weapon, the ice blocked the bullets, steam appearing as the aftermath. She manipulated the steam to spread out and condense. None of the White Fang could see through the steam and could not hear where Glinda was. Unknown to them, she was floating in the air and was charging her aura up. Once she released it, the steam swirled around until it created a mini tornado that pulled in many of her enemies. She snapped her crop several times, each time sending something new into the mini tornado, which caused it to grow and suck in more White Fang. First fire, then sharp rocks, then glass. For the final touch, she summoned lightning on top of the mini tornado that was roaring fiercely. Allowing the mini tornado to run its course, she simply stayed floating in the air and turned around, ignoring the screams of the victims of her attack. The bird Franus quickly flew at her with wings on his back and swords in both fingers, figuring she was weak in close combat and was ready to get revenge for his comrades. He was going to be very disappointed since Glinda believed that she should not be weak in CQC ever since she was defeated by a martial artist. However, as the Franus was blind in rage, she simply stepped to the side and slammed her riding crop into his face, causing him to drop his swords to grab his face as he slammed into the ground. Glinda levitated the swords and used them to stab into the chains several Franus had thrown at her in order to take her down. She sent a burst of aura into the chains and shattered them completely. She maneuvered the metal into a ball before sending it crashing into a crowd. Seeing that the ball was completely surrounded, she made it blow up and the surrounding furnace had been slashed by the shrapnel. She charged up her aura, knowing that the mini tornado from before would have run its course by now. The furnace not knocked out struggled to get up as Glinda prepared to finish the fight. Osmond on the other hand was not doing much fighting. He sidestepped one after another as he was being slashed and shot at. He stood still as his own enemies stopped to catch their breath. Unknown to them he had been dragging his cane on the ground as he constantly dodged. On the ground was a carved glyph. He slammed his cane into the ground and sent his aura into the rune glyph, causing it to send a burst upwards. None of the faunus inside the giant carving were standing on the ground as Osmond carved an all-purpose glyph whose ability would change on what he needed. Any faunus that stepped inside were affected by it, but none could get out. Osmond softly hopped onto the back of a faunus and hopped again. Only while it looked soft, it was full of force as the faunus slammed into the ground and created a crater. Osmond landed on another faunus and stopped to look at the pleading in his eyes. Osmond simply fixed his glasses and jumped, sending the faunus into his comrades, and they were sent crashing through a wall. This became a repeated process of him jumping of a faunus and them creating craters into different surfaces. He ended the zero gravity and landed in the center as if nothing happened. The faunus around him were pissed at what he did but did not dare risk walking into the glyph. He tapped the ground once and lightning surged through the ground. The faunus took this as if they would only be hit if they touched the glyph and jumped or flew at Osmond. Just as the faunus were within feet of him he tapped his cane, adjusted his classes and watched the fireworks. All the faunus in the air only had a second to be surprised as lightning from the ground surged up and pierced them as it connected to the ceiling. Osmond simply stared as the hanging faunus as they were being shocked. He allowed the lightning to disperse as the faunus hit the ground smoking. He noticed that his last opponents were the two rhino captains. They both seemed to be twins, though it was hard to tell with the blank masks on their faces. The one on Osmond's left had a metal club in his right hand, while the one on Osmond's right had one in his left hand. The three stood tensely, well two of them stood tensely, the last simply wished that he had some tea to drink. But Naruto prepared to throw down Tanuki's bloodlust and inwardly thanked his good friend Gaara for teaching him this move. As Tanuki's bloodlust in Morning Star mode hit the ground, it immediately burst open and covered the entirety of the White Fang. As Tanuki's bloodlust was still connected at the hilt he pulled and he slammed into the sand, transferring the force throughout the mini desert he created. He placed both hands on the ground and sent both his aura and his chakra into the sand. Destructive sand burial. But these words the sand crushed, but he made sure not to kill the White Fang before exploding into the air. Naruto ignored the falling sand and bodies as Gaara's protection slowly sucked in the sand from his back. What he didn't ignore was the red-haired man in front of him who had his hands on the sheath with the hilt facing Naruto. But Glinda stared heartlessly at the White Fang in front of her as a giant glyph appeared behind her. One flick sent her side of the room into complete destruction as a meteor was crashing through the White Fang. One last flick made it explode and she was now outside with dust obscuring her vision. But she did see a silhouette inside the dust cloud. The figure was in the air as well and was flapping her back wings. The figure seemed to have a lance in her hand. Together, the three humans said in unison. I suppose I cannot convince you to lay down your weapons and try to help your fallen comrades. The White Fang members shake their heads, except for the red-haired one as he just got into a battle position, then prepare yourself. Chapter end. Adam rushed toward Naruto who was surprised by his speed. Adam faked a slash from the left before sliding behind the cloak ninja. Naruto was caught off guard as he wasn't expecting Adam to be so fast. Just before Adam's wilt slashed Naruto's cloak, but before it could hit it was wrapped up by Tanuki's bloodlust. Naruto turned around and swung his arm to the side in order to throw Adam. Adam planted his feet straight on the ground and a small dust cloud appeared as he was dragged to the side and into some rubble. Naruto kept Gaara's protection in front of him, he had a feeling the fight wouldn't be so easy. Next thing he knew was that he saw wilt flying toward him and right before it went past his face, Adam grabbed it. Adam shot at Naruto with blush a few times, but they were blocked by Gaara's protection, this left Naruto open for a quick slash toward his head. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as Naruto moved his head back so he wouldn't be hit, but he couldn't dodge it completely as his mask was cut. Naruto flinched slightly, but that gave an opening that was so small only a skilled warrior could see it, and unfortunately for Naruto Adam was one such character. He slid beneath Naruto and swept his feet before shooting Naruto into the air several times. Adam inserted wilt into blush and quickly slashed at Naruto several times, juggling Naruto into the air. As Naruto fell Adam didn't try to slash or shoot him, but he jump kicked Naruto into a wall. He rushed at Naruto only to be blasted back by some sand. Naruto was annoyed that he had fallen into the trap of underestimating your enemy. He took out Tanuki's bloodlust and shifted it into sword mode. He set Gaara's protection onto his back as he felt it would only get in the way as this would be a fast-paced battle. Both watched the other closely as they slowly walked forward. Adam disappeared in a blur while Naruto glowed and disappeared. They both clashed in several areas at high speeds. After a few clashes their weapons were locked with each other. Naruto quickly realized that he couldn't hold back the justice that he learned from his travels. Of course he knew that if he used hand seals it would look suspicious and he could only use the weak ones with no hand seals at all. However, even the smallest advantages or surprises can help in a high-level skill battle. Naruto sent wind chakra into his leg and kicked Adam away. As Adam was kicked backwards, Naruto quickly did hand seals while he couldn't see. Wind style. Wind crossings. Naruto thought the wind jutsu in his head. Naruto made 2 quick slashes toward Adam and allowed the jutsu to run its course as an X shaped by wind hit Adam. Naruto quickly sent several wind style. Wind bullets toward Adam and knocked him so hard he created a crater in the wall. Naruto frowned as he saw that Adam was not as hurt as he should be. The thing with chakra and aura is that even if the people from both the shinobi world and the world of remnant could use both, aura had the advantage because it protected the body from outside attacks, while chakra would be able to defend against most inflictions like diseases. Naruto decided to finish the fight as he used the jutsu that Kakashi and Sasuke enjoyed using so much. Lightning appeared in Naruto's hand as he faced it down to the ground. While Adam was busy getting up, he was trying to put the right amount of chakra to knock him out and not kill him. Adam was shaking his head and tried to get his bearings together. He looked to find his opponent, but the last thing he saw was a flash before being knocked unconscious. Naruto had streaked across the room almost immediately and slammed Adam into the wall with Chidori. This made the previous crater even bigger. Naruto flipped his hand to the side to wipe away the remaining electricity away. He quickly put away his Ichibi weapons away and turned around to see Glinda and Aspen staring at him. "So if you two are here then I'm guessing you finished up?" Naruto asked. Aspen shook his head. Actually it seems as if Glinda has allowed her own opponent to get away. Naruto saw that Glinda was embarrassed and while he would usually make fun of such a failure, he felt that teasing Glinda would be worse than the time he made a crude sexual joke to both Sakura and Sasuke. "I see, then is it just me, or did all of the White Fangs somehow escape while we were fighting?" This was something that Naruto just noticed as he was no longer in an intense fight. Somehow all of the White Fang were able to get out. "Perhaps I can shed some light on that." Glinda adjusted her glasses. "While I was fighting off one of these ruffians, someone who was cloaked by shadows had the gall to interrupt my battle and had swept away my opponent with a dust spell. It also seems as if this person had done so with the rest as well." Aspen confirmed this as the 2 weak opponents had disappeared in a flash. This had left him slightly annoyed as he seemed to have the weakest opponents. Naruto was now currently thinking of his next move. He no longer had a reason to stay here and after obtaining the much needed information about Remnant, he would need to start forming the bridge between the two worlds. Aspen stared at the contemplating masked ninja in front of him. Over the years Aspen had learned to discern what lies inside the hearts of people by conversing and fighting with or against them. The man in front of him gave off no hatred at all, which was something he thought was amazing. His instincts and the aura the man gave off was one that seemed to say trust me. The man that he fought beside seemed trustworthy, but Aspen had made many mistakes in his life. The question was if he should be willing to risk making one with this mercenary. Naruto had already recognized the two in front of him for who they are. The famous Glinda Goodwitch that was an expert in the manipulation of dust. And the famous headmaster Aspen of Beacon. He figured that since they were so important he would end up talking to them about the shinobi world eventually, so sooner is better than later. "This will sound like an odd request coming from me, but do you think I could accompany you two when you head to Beacon? I have important things to talk about with you." Naruto hoped that they would accept his request. "And what is it that is so important that you need to accompany us first?" Aspen asked. "Can't say. These walls can have hidden ears. But I assure you that I only have peaceful intentions in mind." Naruto bowed his head. Aspen inwardly sighed and hoped for the best. "Very well then. It may take a few hours to get to Vale, so I hope you can wait." Linda, unlike Aspen, seemed to have some apprehension with a mercenary joining them. Before anyone could say anything else they found themselves on a rooftop at Beacon. Unknown to the two hunters they had been reverse summoned by a toad that Naruto kept at Vale for emergencies. "Well, since we are in Vale now we may only need a few minutes to get to our destination," Naruto said. Naruto saw that Glinda was studying him as she was curious and disoriented at the sudden transportation. He also saw that Aspen was giving no shits whatsoever about what happened. But in Aspen's mind he was thinking about what Naruto was as he had seen the strange symbols appear below them before they were transported. Either way both men had a feeling this would be an interesting night. Chapter end. Naruto and Aspen sat in a comfortable silence. Osmond had sent Glinda away, and while she tried to sway him into allowing her to stay, he made her go to get him some tea before pulling some out within a coffee mug. This had made Naruto laugh a little, and it had lightened up the atmosphere. They sat silently for several more seconds until Naruto apologized. "I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think of a way to explain this. But I guess I'll just be blunt, something that I'm good at." Naruto took a deep breath. "Please do not interrupt until I finish what I am saying. Tell me. Do you really believe that your lands are the only ones that exist? Our planet is a small one, and there is an empty ocean body on the other side of the world. Have you never thought that suspicious? Or even thought-provoking? I will tell you this. On that side of the world, on my side of the world is another body of land. Hidden by a barrier. For whatever reason, it would seem as if our two lands, our two worlds, were to never meet." Naruto went to rub his hair before realizing that he still had his mercenary attire on and put his hand down, sighing. "To tell the truth, the leaders of my people were hesitant in reaching out to your lands. But I convinced them that doing so would be a good idea to reach out. I believe it would be more beneficial to make contact now rather than the future generations do so accidentally, for it may end with war. We have the power, but your people have the technology. I believe our people have the ability to help each other. My land rarely has criminals now and would be able to fight against the grim easier than some of your hunters and huntresses. Our two lands have their own specialties that can assist the other, and obviously both lands can learn to use each other's skills." Naruto pointed at himself as an example. "The reason I am here is to create peaceful relations with the leaders of your world, but discreetly, of course. You are the first one I have reached out to. It may be a coincidence, but I like to think that fate finally decided to throw me a bone. You are a man of many connections, and I would appreciate it if you would assist me." Naruto stood up and bowed. He held the position while Osmond was thinking. Naruto inwardly wondered how everyone would react to him acting like he did now. It had been some time since he saw anyone from his homeland, but he did talk to the tailed beasts pretty often. While it was true that Naruto finally grew up, a part of him was still a joker and carefree. As a kid he acted the way he did in order for people to recognize his existence, but the attitude had rubbed off on him. He never thought this as a bad thing because he felt that his old traits were good traits to have if they were toned down to a not annoying extent anyways. He knew now that there was a time and a place for everything, and he would act accordingly to the situation most of the time anyways. While he was drowning with nostalgia he heard Osmond speak. "I will believe you. You may not have heard since you have not been here long. But there is an old legend, one that has been discovered not many decades ago within a temple, of a land full of war and destruction. You say you are here on peaceful intentions, but how can I believe you?" Naruto had a lot of experience in proving himself to people, and he felt this was one of those times. He straightened his back and took off his hood and masks, showing his faded whisker marks and his golden hair. By now Naruto was around 20 years old. 5 years since the war, 5 years since he and Kurama were separated, 5 years since he matured. "You know, this cloak that I wear is the dream of my fellow students of one of my former masters. They are dead now, but I wear this to keep their dream, along with my own, alive and announce it to the world. Our dream and the dream of my master is this. True peace." Naruto took off the cloak to show that he was wearing some armor underneath it. He had swirling tattoos on his arms, and each swirl was used to summon a weapon. He wore a simple black t-shirt with orange stripes on the sleeves that showed off his modest muscles. As for his pants, they were a simple black and had many pockets to hide things in. Naruto took out a small regular pistol he kept in there for emergencies and put it on the desk. Naruto took off his armor and looked Osmond dead in the eye. "If you believe my intentions untrue, shoot me now. If I am truly here on malicious intentions, killing me now would provide your land with an advantage. Make your decision." As Naruto said this he put every ounce of his feelings in it. Before he had convinced an army with his memories, the Raikage with his words, and even the demon of the mists abuse Mamachi. Naruto had even been able to help Sai of Root with his emotions and his fellow ex-rookies with their own attitudes. He got Neji to stop being a whiny bitch, Hinata to not be so shy, and even for Sasuke to not have a stick up his ass all the time. Naruto was always able to bring people to his side, now he only hoped he could do it again. Chapter end. It had been some time since Osmond had hired Naruto. However, he had not started working yet, as they both believed Naruto should start when the new students would arrive, which was not far from now. Naruto sat in his new room. Currently, he was on a chair and writing on a scroll and had several others closed on his desk. Right now he was informing the events of the past few weeks to the Gokage. He had already written several others letters to his friends, but he didn't want to worry them, so he kept the events of these last few weeks hidden. Naruto knew he shouldn't keep any event a secret, as the Kage were the ones that helped him choose his next moves. While it was true that Naruto was smart, he couldn't quite be the decision-maker person like his dad Minato Namikaze. After all, Naruto was Naruto above all else. Naruto thought about and wrote at the same time why Ozpin had hired Naruto. They both thought that Naruto could already show the shinobi lands as trustworthy if the next generations knew and trusted Naruto. Of course, Naruto still needed to see other important figures and leaders of the world, so Naruto would put on his mercenary garb every now and again and would work with important figures of the world. Of course, there were a great many times where he worked with people who weren't really important figures of the world, but were people that he felt he connected with rather well, enough to the point he felt they would help him on his little quest if he told them who he was. Like the recent train incident that had gained him new allies, or friends as he thought them. They taught him how to use these spheres that were dust but were enhanced and would not be lost after one use. These were also safer to combine with each other and with objects. Flashback End. If you do not want to see French Frank's characters, find Flashback End and miss about 99% of the chapter. Naruto was currently on a cliff wearing his military garb. It was surrounded by forest of blue trees. This location was in Vale and was named the Ocean Forest. This was because from the sky you could see the blue forest for miles. He was here because he received word from his informant and one of his new friends Xiong, otherwise known as Junior, that a train that was transporting important supplies for hunters but also carried people was going to be raided. And Junior will be referred to as Hi as, but if speaking to him face to face it will be Junior unless I have Naruto give him another nickname. From what Hi had said, this would be the perfect position to jump onto the train if it really was going to be raided. But he also warned Naruto that the group known as Soldier, which worked for Shinra companies, would be on the train. Naruto was here because he didn't really want to place his trust in security. He knew that not all of them were actually skilled. Some of them couldn't even shoot one target in one hallway, even if there were dozens of them. In any case, he decided that since Ozpin had hired him, he should try and help the world as much as he could in case teaching takes up most of his time. He heard the train coming, but he also saw 4 silver-haired men jump onto the train from a half-mile away. He wasn't sure who most of them were, but he did recognize the one with the longest hair. That man was Sephiroth and was given the nickname the One-Winged Angel of Death, who wielded the Adachi blade known as the Masamune. He was a dangerous man that seemed to disappear for periods of time, but if he was here now, then that would only mean that there would be great destruction. Naruto knew that he would have to start with 1 or maybe even 2 of his Biju weapons immediately. He would still have to deal with some of his accomplices who were no doubt strong if they accompanied the dangerous killer. They may even be related, as silver hair wasn't exactly common among even mercenaries. Naruto stepped back a few feet and ran and jumped onto the train. He used chakra to make sure he didn't stumble and fall. He went to the middle section of the train as it would be empty of passengers and busted a hole from the ceiling with one of his tambo. He fell in and saw a group of soldier and security resting and talking to each other. Ah shit, Naruto thought. The ones who gave off the most notable feelings were a trio that was leaning against a wall. The one on the left was a blonde with slightly spiked hair with blue eyes that stood at 5'7". He wore a black shirt that was sleeveless, but he had a pauldron on his left shoulder. He had black combat boots on with black pants. At his hips was a cape that covered the back of his legs to where his ankles were. He was wearing black gloves and on his right arm was a metal arm guard that covered the top of his arm. He had a harness on his back that currently carried 4 swords. He had 2 more swords in his hand already. His face was alarmed. In the middle was a tall man of 6'1" with black spiky hair that was going back with a lock hanging in front of his right eye. On his lower left cheek was a thin X scar. He was wearing the same thing as the blonde man minus the cape and the arm guard. He had pauldrons on both of his shoulders. Speaking of his shoulders, he currently held a giant broadsword in his gloved hands where he settled the blunt side of the blade on his shoulders. His face had a frown on it which seemed unnatural for some reason, as if this man was not someone who frowned much. The final person was on the right and looked the most relaxed. It was a female with wavy hair that seemed a natural light pink, unlike Sakura. She was wearing boots that stopped just below her knees and her legs were being showed off as she wore brown shorts with a red pouch attached to it. She had white shirt over a brown one and her navel was shown slightly. She had a single green pauldron on her shoulder. She also had a red cape on her back that went to the back of her knees. She was moving her hand to the holster around her hip which carried a gun that seemed slightly longer than the average gun. Look, I know you don't have much of a reason to believe me, but this train is in danger. The One-Winged Angel of Death has arrived at the back of the train with accomplices. Naruto warned them immediately. He hoped they would believe him. Before any of the grunts could attack him, he was saved the trouble of knocking them out by the black-haired man. Don't worry, we believe you. You're lucky that I feel Sephiroth's presence right now or your ass would be fried. The blonde man spoke up. Zack, you and Lightning keep an eye on this guy. I'll go with the others and see if we can disconnect the rest of the train from the passengers. I'll catch up as soon as possible. As the blonde-haired guy ran off, Naruto looked at the ones he now knew as Zack and Lightning. "I hope you don't expect me to stay here," Naruto said before running off to the back of the train. "Well, he's a speedy one, ain't he, Light?" Zack laughed as he chased the blonde. "Men." Lightning scoffed as she ran to keep up with the two cheerful men. They ran through the different train carts at a fast pace. "Out of curiosity, do either of you have information on Sephiroth and his little gang of silver-haired buddies?" Naruto asked. Lightning fed, "Zack, this is all yours." Zack scratched the back of his head as they ran. "Right. Well, buddy, listen up, when it comes to Sephiroth, leave it to me or Cloud, we're the only ones that could ever hope to beat him." Zack explained to Naruto the strengths and weaknesses of the small group they were running after. Naruto was impressed with Zack and Cloud for being able to beat back Sephiroth. "I see, well then when we find them we can." Naruto was cut off as a gauntlet blinked at his side and knocked him out of the train. "Whoa." Zack and Lightning jumped back as the brutish-looking man hit Naruto out the building. The one resembling Sephiroth the most pursued the shinobi out of the building. The one with shoulder-length hair with a bang that covered his right eye lunged at the two warriors in front of him. Lightning pulled out her gun from the holster and shot at the lunging man named Kadage. He cut up the bullets and before he could reach Lightning, she shifted her gun into a weapon and they clashed. Kadage's Sauba was a katana hilt with two parallel blades sticking out. Lightning held her flamberge gunsword to the right of her face. She made Kadage back up and before she could do anything else Cloud appeared and knocked Kadage through the ceiling and followed. Lightning looked around and saw only the gauntlet-wearing man known as Laws. Apparently Zack slipped out in order to find Sephiroth. The female warrior sighed, "Of course I get the dumb one." As she said that Lightning noticed that the man had slight tears. She sighed and charged at him. Law's single gauntlet known as Dual Hound sparked as he readied his fist. He swung at Lightning and she bended backwards in order to dodge. As she settled herself straight, she was forced to step backward several times as Laws kept swinging at her. Her back hit the wall and Laws grinned. His entire body glowed blue and he swung. Lightning used her flexibility and agility in order to jump off the wall and over her opponent. Electricity sparked through the wall once Dual Hound connected. Lightning quickly activated the gravity device located at her hip. A field went out and all the boxes in the room started to float. Laws was caught off guard for a second and fire surrounded Flamberge. She slashed at him several times. She kicked him to the ground and gravity went back to normal. She fell with her head to the floor as she stabbed her gunsword to hit Laws. Laws blinked out of Lightning's way and kicked her from the side when her sword stabbed the ground. Lightning landed and saw Laws put his foot on the hilt of her weapon, tilting it to the side. She rushed to Laws quickly, she threw a red sphere at Law's leg and he lifted his leg off her weapon. Lightning kicked Laws into the air. The sphere landed perfectly within her weapon and it glowed. As this was happening she was already in the process of kicking Laws once again. As he hit the wall he moved toward her only to be hit with a hilt of Flamberge as she had kicked the weapon towards him, cutting the bottom of the train in the process. Laws stumbled only to be hit by a combo Lightning so affectionately called Army of One. As she finished the combo Laws was dazzled and Lightning knew he was done. She slashed at his face and fired Flamberge at the same time. The slash and the shot connected at the same time and Laws was against the wall knocked out. She scoffed at how easy the fight was and ran off to where an explosion happened. With Cloud. Cloud wasn't messing around with Kadage as he knew that he could easily win. His fusion swords were already connected and the two warriors traded shots in the air. Cloud manipulated his body into moving behind Kadage and he slashed, hitting Kadage toward the cliff. Kadage landed on his feet on the side of the cliff and backflipped in order to dodge Cloud. He held Sauba in reverse grip and deflected Cloud's attacks. Kadage caught the fusion swords in between Sauba's parallel blades and smirked. Cloud gave his own smirk as he split off a sword and it shot in back of Kadage. He punched Kadage in the face before grabbing his arm in order to throw him to where the split sword was. They were in the air as Cloud shot toward Kadage. His knee slammed into Kadage's stomach and he grabbed the blade he split from the fusion sword. He cut into Kadage several times, destroying his clothing and giving him several deep gashes. Cloud spun in the air several times forward and slashed his swords in an overhead strike. His momentum brought Kadage straight into the ground and he smirked at how much stronger he was compared to Kadage. He bounded Kadage before running towards Sephiroth in the blue forest. With Naruto. Naruto was laughing on the inside at how frustrated his opponent Yazoo was. Naruto made one comment about how stupid Sephiroth looked and he got completely enraged. Naruto had his third Biju weapon out in order to defend himself. It was completely overpowering for someone like Yazoo who had the weakest stamina of his brothers. It was a shell like Isobu's that covered his right arm and spread out to his back and was slightly bigger than Naruto's 5'8" stature. He named it Shy Shell in honor of Isobu. His shield was blocking off all the shots from Yazoo's Velvet Nightmare pistol. His shield was being hit by all manners of shots. Regular bullets, electricity, fire, ice, and all types of others were bouncing off his shield. Naruto decided he should finish it as he dashed toward Yuzu. He front flipped as shy shell covered his entire body and he kept spinning. He slammed into Yuzu before bouncing off the ground in order to crush and grind Yuzu in the air for several seconds. Yuzu coughed and was out of breath as his aura could not defend himself well enough against the chakra of a tailed beast. Naruto stopped spinning and shy shell disappeared in a current of water. He waited for Yuzu to be flipped as he was already flying back. Yuzu was almost completely out as he closed his right eye and tried to move. Naruto spun behind Yuzu and wrapped his arms around Yuzu. He brought them down while spinning at higher speeds than Rock Lee and Mito Guy's primary lotus. They crashed into the ground and a large bang was heard as smoke filled the blue-covered forest. Naruto was sitting on the back of Yuzu who was no longer wearing a shirt and was covered in scratches. He scratched his head in embarrassment as he realized he almost killed Yuzu with his finishing move. His face became serious as he saw Sephiroth and Zack clashing in the air. But Zack was a cheerful guy. Anyone can tell that much. But right now he was really pissed off. Sephiroth's attitude and his actions were endangering the innocent and that was just not okay in his book. The only problem was that he and Sephiroth were evenly skilled. He needed something or someone to tip the balance in his favor. Of course Zack was able to receive what he needed. Both of the swordsmen were locked in a deadlock with their swords diagonally right. Lightning jumped up dozens of feet into the air from the left to where Zack and Sephiroth were. She clashed her flaming gunsword into Sephiroth and pushed him back slightly. It was a true compliment to Sephiroth's strength as he was not pushed back completely. Sephiroth smirked and smacked the two aside with ease. Cloud appeared behind Sephiroth and hit him into the ground with his fusion sword. Sephiroth smashed into the ground and smoke blocked him from sight. Lightning and Zack ran over while Cloud fell together to wait for Sephiroth to come out. "Either of you two find the masked guy?" Zack asked. He didn't want the guy to be killed even if he didn't know him. The two shook their heads in sync. They didn't get a chance to say anything else as Sephiroth slashed through the smoke and a wave of energy flew to them. When it was halfway to them a shadow appeared in front of them and blocked the energy. When the wave hit the figure it created smoke to appear and the three had to cover their eyes. They saw the masked man in front of them with the top part of his cloak destroyed. He had a shield on his right arm and with his upper body exposed they could see a scar at where his heart would be at his back. "I'm not late am I?" Naruto laughed slightly. No, you're just on time." Zack chuckled alongside Naruto. Lightning scoffed while Cloud gave a small almost unnoticeable smirk at Zack's antics. They didn't get the chance to exchange more pleasantries as Sephiroth used his fastest speed to appear behind Cloud. Become nothing more than a memory cloud. Then Sephiroth stabbed Cloud in the heart. Snick, the sound of flesh being pierced and blood echoed through the clearing. Everyone's eyes widened. Standing there with a Masamune pierced through him was Naruto. The Masamune was stopped just short of impaling Cloud. "Why did you?" Cloud muttered. Naruto looked back and smiled, but it wasn't seen because of his two masks. "Do I need a reason to save a life?" Naruto's words seemed to ring through their heads. Sephiroth pulled back Masamune and Naruto was pulled closer to Sephiroth and was impaled to the hilt. "If you're so eager to die," Sephiroth moved his hand to Naruto's face, "then I'll grant you your wish." He cruelly smirked. Sephiroth blasted Naruto with an explosion and he was sent into the forest. Lightning reacted in time to catch Naruto, but they crashed into a tree. Lightning turned him over to see if he was alright and saw his upper mask falling apart while his mouth mask was burned up. She swept aside the now broken mask from his face and saw a handsome blonde around her age. Cloud and Zack weren't paying attention to the blonde and the light pink-haired woman as their attention was solely on Sephiroth. Sephiroth still had a cruel smirk and was looking at Cloud. "Tell me what you cherish most and give me the pleasure of taking it away." Cloud was so angry he was releasing his entire remaining aura, unbeknownst to him. He was releasing more aura than he has ever before, he was glowing blue and it spread for several feet. "You wouldn't understand, there isn't a thing in this world that I don't cherish," Cloud shouted as he knocked Sephiroth into the air. Cloud waited until they stopped ascending to begin his Omnislash version 5. As he continued to hit Sephiroth several times with the pieces of his fusion sword, Cloud felt stronger than ever before. He slammed Sephiroth into the ground with a blue streak trailing him. He looked to where Sephiroth was and saw nobody there. But Cloud didn't worry, he had a feeling that Sephiroth wouldn't come back for a while. "Cloud. Help us out over here." He heard them call over to him and remembered about the blonde who took a life-threatening strike for him and ran over. Flashback and no more French Frank's characters. "Sorry if you didn't enjoy the segment, but to make it up to you, I created more for you. Enjoy." Naruto remembered that situation pretty well. The three warriors he fought beside actually liked him pretty well. And they even asked to stop by every now and again. although Lightning looked a little conflicted when she said that. Still, it was a successful mission as far as Naruto was concerned. He was definitely not against visiting them, especially Lightning. His thoughts were interrupted when his scroll beeped. "Hello Naruto, if you are free, I would like to have a talk about your idea on how to teach the students, and hearing a little more about your journeys would not be fraught against." Naruto smiled, "Don't worry Ozzy, I'm free. Just let me clean up a little. Is everyone else there?" "Everyone will be here shortly," Ozpin replied. "I'll try not to get lost on the road of life," Naruto joked, and then he hung up the scroll. Naruto and Ozpin had decided to tell the rest of the staff about Naruto. More specifically, Ozpin thought about it and was slightly surprised Naruto accepted the idea. Ozpin had a good feel about Naruto by now. Naruto accepted because he knew the staff would be trustworthy, but he also knew that big secrets could hurt. After all, Itachi suffered a lot for his secret. In any case, the teachers would often hold meetings, and with Peter Port detailing an adventure of his, it got Naruto in the mood of recalling some of his own adventures to his new coworkers. The teachers found out more and more with every story of his. They knew of his immense willpower and his good heart through his stories. He had actually started with the fourth great ninja war first. It was the main reason why he was who he was now. Naruto dressed up in his new casual clothes. He was wearing blue jeans with a pouch attached to his right leg above his knee. He had a regular black shirt on, but it had dark orange sleeves popping below the black shirt covering his arms. On top of his shirts was the coat he wore when he mastered Sage Mode, only it was tattered on the bottom in a pattern that was akin to flames. And finally he wore a simple pair of black shoes. He summoned a messenger toad and gave him the completed scrolls for his friends first, then some of the reports that were completed. He walked out of his room and toward the teacher's lounge. He had an idea on how to teach the students. Later in the teacher's lounge. The teachers had just finished listening to Naruto tell them about the time he had saved Shion. The story had brought up memories of when he promised to impregnate her, even if he didn't notice at the time. He did end up going through on that promise, which had actually made him thank Jiraiya for forcing him to proofread his works, because otherwise it would have made for an awkward night. Ozpin was chuckling for a while before coughing into his fist. He cleared his throat and started talking, "So tell me Naruto, have you finally decided on what to teach the students?" Naruto smiled and scratched his head in a way the teachers had gotten used to seeing when he was nervous or embarrassed. Something they first saw when he accidentally burned off Glinda's clothes and were familiarized with as he told them stories. "Well, I do have a little idea, tell me what you think about it." Naruto's idea was to make him a required class, but what he taught would be broad. He would help students with their problems whether personal or not, since he had experience in that type of thing. He would also help expand on what the other teachers taught, and he would give them important life lessons. Also, with his ability to sense negative emotions, he would be able to stop students from going down a dark road. Naruto would also be the best one to test the students as he would not coddle them, but he would also be careful and watch them closely. And because Naruto was Naruto, he could connect with the students faster and much easier than the other teachers. The teachers gave it some thought for a few minutes and discussed it. They believed it would be a good idea and Naruto would teach all the students from all the years together every day. This would help bring the students closer together and get them to trust Naruto more. With the purpose of the meeting completed, everyone started to go out. Naruto saw Glinda move out and remembered some of the things his parents and his friends said to him. He got out of his seat and jogged to Glinda. "Hey Glinda." He unknowingly gave the smile that made women's hearts throb. "Yes Naruto." She made sure that her blush was unnoticeable to anyone. "How would you say to going to dinner to me?" Everyone but Naruto froze. What? Glinda was caught off guard like everyone else. Naruto mostly asked her out because he knew his parents wanted him to find a good girl for himself, while his friends didn't want him to feel alone. "I am asking you, Glinda Goodwitch, if you want to go on a date with me." Glinda coughed into her hand, "And why would you want to go with me?" Glinda was curious why. She knew that many thought her stiff and too strict. "Other than the fact that you're physically appealing," Naruto joked, "I really like you and I think we can get along pretty well. Besides, I won't judge you cause you're a little strict, I want to get to know the real you." Naruto was also curious to see the real Glinda Goodwitch, since at his age, he had learned to not take things as face value. "I see, well then. I accept your invitation." All the teachers except for Ozpin, who was drinking his tea, had kept still the entire time. Hearing Glinda Goodwitch accept the blonde's invitation made them so shocked their minds shut down while they were still standing. The two blondes then separated, ignoring their fellow teachers. Ozpin chuckled, "Looks like little Glinda is growing up." He looked at the other teachers who were in a blank state. "Well, I can't just leave them like this." Ozpin pulled out a marker from who knows where and went to town on his workers' faces. Chapter end. Onto the chapter. Naruto was currently relaxing in the Mistral city known as 1/2 plus or minus 3/4 mu degrees superscript 1 1/2 1/4 plus or minus a umlaut plus or minus new beginnings. The city was near the ocean. He had a trying day by becoming a quick negotiator. As it was, he just made a deal with the company that his friends Zack and Cloud worked for named Shinra. As it was, the deal stood with the shinobi land sending shinobi to protect interests of Shinra, and in return his homeland would gain more technology. It was extremely beneficial considering that Shinra was a genius company that helped come up with so many things both with and without dust. They were able to create these tools named materia, which were dust only able to be permanently used. The Shinee weren't too happy with that, seeing as people could stop buying dust and put them out of business. Luckily for them, people were skeptical about using the materia. All things considering, most might have said it would be a bad idea to reveal the shinobi to the company suspected for the sudden disease from a while back called geostigma. The only reasons Naruto even did so was because of his friends and because his instinct told him to do so. With no other business needed in the city, Naruto would have normally gone back to Beacon or even Rome Remnant to see if he can stop any crime or even discover something worthwhile. However, Naruto had a gut feeling that he should stick in the city. Not only that, but old man Wukong had actually warned him the other day about something coming his way. Flashback. Naruto was laughing hard at the short old man that had tripped on a small hole. He was currently at the mountains for a little training and decided that visiting old man Wukong would be a good idea. The old man was short, only about 4'8", and had blonde hair. His red pants covered up his leg hair, but he forgone a shirt and showed off his hairy monkey pecs to the world. Naruto was a little weirded out at first, but realized that after being eaten by Son Goku, there was nothing else that could be more disgusting. Old man Wukong had a red staff horizontally from his waist. It was a simple weapon but a very tough one. Naruto often made fun of the staff being twice as tall as old man Wukong. Unfortunately for Naruto, things were about to get serious rather quickly. Ahem, anyways, before you leave boyo, I got news for you. Old man Wukong seemed to regain his posture. Naruto coughed in order to stop laughing. Okay, lay it on me, old man hairy chest. It was definitely not the best nickname he's given someone, but he called things as he saw them. I'm being serious here, boyo. Old man Wukong had a slight scowl. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Okay, what is it then? Seeing a scowl on old monkey Franus was like seeing a frown on Jiraiya's face, it just didn't fit. I've been getting feelings on the hair from my back. Be careful, boyo, something dangerous is coming your way soon. Very soon. Naruto asked, do you know what it is? The shadow appeared over old man Wukong's eyes as he lowered his face a little. It's something I have no clue about. Ho 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 ho. The tension in the air disappeared. Naruto fell on his face. What the fuck, old man hairy chest? Don't call me that, you brat. If you want to be that way, get off my mountain. And while you're at it, tell that idiot grandson of mine to bring me presents. Naruto gained a tick mark and closed his eyes. I ain't your slave, old man. Flashback end. In any case, despite the ending of their meeting, both knew that the old monkey Franus was serious. So despite his mostly relaxed state, he was ready to kick ass and take names at any moment. He walked backwards down the street, looking at the temple that was built so alluringly. Oof. Naruto knocked someone into the ground. Oh my. The red-haired figure rubbed her head as she landed straight onto her butt. Hey, sorry about that, guess I was a little distracted by the temple right here. Naruto sheepishly grinned as he stuck his hand out to the girl. The girl gave a small red smile. It's alright, it was an accident after all. Well, my name's Naruto, nice to meet you. When he saw she wasn't going to introduce herself, he said, you know, it's rude to not introduce yourself. Even if you are a little famous. All this was said with a smile that made female hearts throb and male minds curse. Oh, I'm so sorry, I am Nikos. She smiled. If you don't mind me asking, what brings you to this side of Mistral? The Redeed was curious as to why this man was here. Well, 1/2 plus or minus 3/4 mu degrees superscript 1 1/2 1/4 plus or minus a umlaut plus or minus was not an unknown city, it wasn't a very famous one. Just a little business deal. An idea struck him. So you want to give me a little tour? I have spare time until I need to leave. It'd be nice to not actually be lost. That last part was a joke, but it didn't look like Purah caught it. It'd be my pleasure. She closed her eyes and gave a smile. Great. Naruto gave her a giant smile that for a second turned into a miniature sun. First off, could you explain to me what the temple over here is for? He pointed backwards with his thumb to the Greek-styled temple. Purah waited until she regained her eyesight to answer. That temple was used in ancient times to pray to the gods and spirits to protect us from the grim. In fact, it's still being used to this day. Naruto raised his eyebrow, I can tell. People were moving in and out of the larger temple. Purah blushed. So why don't you show me the rest of the city? Naruto suggested. Of course. She smiled. The two ventured throughout the city. Pura would explain the customs to Naruto, who had not known them, at various sites, such as marketplaces and entertainment areas. She didn't so much as blink at Naruto's curiosity and talked with a smile. Somehow, Pura was able to give Naruto a tour before the day even ended. Naruto's stomach rumbled. He scratched the back of his head. "Hey Pura, what do you say about getting some lunch at one of those places you showed me?" Pura thought it over. This man seemed different than others that asked her out to eat. It looked like he didn't even mean for it to be a date. Before Pura answered, a terrible event struck the city. It was time for a hero to shine his way in a dark world once more. So this was going to be more, but I decided against it. There will be a few more chapters till episode 1 of rwby. Onto the chapter. Alarms rang throughout the harbor city, also known as 1/2 plus or minus 3/4 mu degrees superscript 1 1/2 1/4 plus or minus a umlaut plus or minus new beginnings. The piercing sound seemed to paralyze the occupants of the peaceful city. Despite that, it seemed the law enforcement were competent enough to heal the civilians inside the temple. Apparently Pura was speaking the truth when she said that the temple was being used to defend people. He had a feeling that when she said that it was still being used, that she didn't mean it was used often. As the alarms rang out, Naruto closed his eyes and focused intently. Ever since he utilized the power of nature energy, his sensory abilities increased even with Sage Mode. And with the addition of his unity with Kurama and the 6 Paths chakra, his sensory abilities increased outstandingly. Darkness. That was what he could feel. Yet what was the darkness? Where did it come from? Naruto could sense it clearly. It was a new presence that took him time to accept when he first arrived to Remnant. It gave him sleepless nights. It tested his self-control. It made him want to gather Kurama and the other Biju and simply want to blast the lands apart. It was the bane of humanity and the faunus. Of all living beings. It was the Grim. There must have been hundreds gathering outside the city. It seemed fate decided to throw the city a bone, as there were only Grim on land. The harbor side of the city was safe enough. Naruto grimaced a little. This would be a problem. Hordes of werewolf-like creatures, carrying bone spikes and red eyes peering through a white mask. Beowulfs. Boars, unnatural boars. 4 red eyes, several plates of armor sides the belly. Borbotisks. Large scorpions. Big enough to crush a house. Huge tails and wide armor with glowing yellow stingers. A creature accompanied with 10 red eyes. Death Stalker. Serpentine creatures. Some both white and black and connected. Some pure white. Some pure black. Creatures that were either 2 halves of a whole or just one whole with one head. Their tongues slithered as some ripped at the air, showing too many pairs of fangs. King Tajidu. Birds equal to the size of the creatures below. Simply flapping their darkness-like wings and staying in one spot. Nevermore. Dark bears only slightly larger than their more living counterparts. Stocky bones. Ursa. Accompanied with their more older and stronger members. Ursa majors. Mammoths. Incomprehensibly big. Huge tusks that one could garner that much destruction would accompany. Goliaths. There were unfortunately even more. Creeps. Bipedal creatures barely the size of humans with sharp teeth and no arms. Creatures so perversely twisted than their counterparts. There seemed to be no end to them. And they were definitely with their more stronger and older brethren. This was a bad situation. The intelligent Grim, such as the Goliaths being there, showed how hopeless the situation was. Those Grim would not be there if victory was not guaranteed. Help would never reach the city in time, Naruto realized as he scanned the Heart of Darkness. "Excuse me, Naruto." These words were only faintly heard by Naruto as his mind was moving into overdrive. He opened his eyes to see the concerned eyes of the Spartan warrior. Her armor faintly glistened because of the light. "You should head into the temple for safety. All warriors and able fighters are moving to defend the city." Naruto could practically see the worry coming out of her mouth. Naruto closed his eyes and went to scratch his head with his index finger. Just above his golden and crimson Jiraiya-inspired ponytail. Although he never could get it to the length of Jiraiya's, it only went past his shoulders up to his shoulder blades. He couldn't go, even if he went with his mercenary attire on, he would end up using the Biju weapons and his jutsu, which would raise questions to the public. At least in the mercenary world there were only rumors, and none of which would be brought up the world of Remnant. He knew what his fellow shinobi would do in this situation. They would see the city as a lost cause. That there was no need to foolishly intervene on a city obviously dead. But isn't that what he did in the past all those years ago? When the Alliance were on their knees. Given up and drowning in despair. Did he not inspire them with the feelings inside his heart? His desire to save as many as he could. Never regretting his actions. Did Naruto not promise that he would never let his comrades die? That he would do everything he could to lead the world to peace? In his mind, figures began to appear standing together. Not saying anything, but perhaps their presence was them showing their approval. A spiky white-haired man with a perverted smile next to his students. A Redeed whose hair covered the right side of his face with ringed eyes standing in front of his master. An orange-haired man with a grin not unlike his own standing to the left of his best friend. A blue-haired woman with a pale blue paper flower in her hair to her Redeed friend's right. And just in case I messed up explaining, the order from left to right is Konan Nagato Yahiko, then Jiraiya and back. The golden-haired man with a coat that was moving as if blown by wind, standing next to a beautiful crimson-haired woman whose hair was also being blown by invisible wind. Both grinning in a way he was familiar with. Both giving a thumbs up. 3 leaders that Naruto wanted to succeed wearing robes that he wanted to wear so badly as a kid, a silly man giving off a childish grin, his white-haired little brother giving a nod of approval, and the old man Naruto saw as a grandfather, giving a comforting and encouraging smile. Fellow Jinchuriki giving off their own approval. A blonde cat-like girl giving a thumbs up, a very short man giving a smile and a nod, an old Redeed along with a man in armor nodding, a long-haired man that gave a closed-eye smile, and a cheerful girl who waved at him with a smile. Comrades that died in the war pumping their arms in the air, in front of them all a pale-eyed, long-haired man that he saw as a close friend. The man gave his own opinion with a nod that said do what you do best. Why do it if not for the sakes of his master and fellow apprentices? Why do it if not for his parents that believed in him and entrusted the future to him? Why do it if not for his comrades that sacrificed themselves for his sake? Why do it if not to let him look his friends in the eye without guilt? Why do it if not to allow him to look back upon this day and think, I'm glad I protected those people? Other shinobi may have wanted to focus on keeping the shinobi land a secret. But not Naruto. Never Naruto. He would never allow others to take his fall. Not when he could have done something about. And even if he couldn't, people could be damn sure he was going to make it so he could do something. Yes. Naruto decided. To not do something would be an action that would greatly disappoint those in the afterlife. To not do something would insult his friends and comrades. To not do something would show that the trust placed in him by the Biju and the sage they were close to was misplaced. He had to do something, even if it risked his life. While in the few seconds he was trying to decide, he would not see Purah staring intently at the man only a few years older than her. He would not know that she couldn't help but be interested at the person who seemed to have such a natural charisma that she couldn't help but want to follow him. Something about him attracted her, the fact he seemed to not care about her celebrity status was definitely points in his favor. So what if he was barely into his 20s and she was only 17? In a few years those numbers would not even matter. Not to mention she was not a young adult, she could make her own decisions. Just like how she decided to go to Beacon, much to the sadness of her family. By the time Purah came to, Naruto just opened his eyes. Luckily I happen to be quite the fighter. Now come on, no time to lose. They ran across the city until a small air vehicle picked them up. Naruto looked down at the city with a sad look. The city that shined in the day was dim now. With the amount of people panicking, it had become a perfect target for Grim. He looked back up while his hand was on the ceiling of the air vehicle. The barricade around the city was only slightly larger than the Goliaths, but they would be taken down easily. The pilot stopped just above where the other defenders are. In front of the wall they were to defend. Naruto and Purah were the first to jump out. A few hunters that looked nervous followed them. The blonde looked up to see the pilot moving back to the city, either to find more defenders or get civilians to safety, he didn't know. He looked forward at the monsters that waited, it was as if staring at a black wall. If the black wall also had glowing red spots anyways. He weaved to the front, faintly aware that Purah followed. He stared at the Grim, waiting for any sign of them starting to attack. But no. He sensed it before, but the Grim were doing nothing. They were just staring at. Oh shit. They were staring right at him. The Grim always had a penchant with him. Though he never knew why, he had a few theories why. But that wasn't important right now. What was important was defending the people. While Naruto would try not to use his jutsu seeing as they were mostly destructive, he wouldn't hold back it, the city seemed to be in danger. Well, more danger anyways. Naruto swallowed real quick and calmed down. He looked back and saw the hunters and Spartan warriors alike to Purah looking nervous, it was understandable at least. A city that was close to this many Grim tended to be in ruins rather quickly. They were basically outnumbered 101. Most of the warriors would be unable to take down 100 Grim, it was worse when half of those are the powerful and older Grim. He listened to their whispers. How the hell are we supposed to defend against that? Oh, gods. Maybe we should just beat it, I mean, this city is dead. Right. This situation was so like the moments where the Alliance gave up. He would take care of it all the same. He inhaled and exhaled deeply and clenched his right fist that held the sun marking of the 6 paths yang power. His blue's eyes seemed to glow as the people looked at the person that stood in front of them. Somehow they saw him and felt as if everything would be alright. They could feel the warmth he radiated. The blonde had somehow become their leader and their hope within seconds. Naruto had changed out of his clothing into something more fitting for the situation within seconds when Pura took her eyes off him in the plane that picked them up. He was wearing a red version of Hagoromo's coat, only instead of Magatama he had the Uzumaki crest. On the inside of the coat which was hidden was a picture of a golden nine-tailed fox whose tails were spread out. His pants were a simple black color. He had several small scrolls hanging at his legs. "All of you." Naruto addressed them and put his heart into his words. "Why do you shirk back? Why is it that you allow fear and despair into your heart?" He looked into their eyes and they felt as if he was looking into their souls. "You are warriors. You are hunters. You are defenders. Are you all not remnants of the heroes and survivors of the past? Your ancestors have lived through odds worse than these. Prove yourselves worthy of their legacy." Naruto unclenched his fist and swung it to the right. "It is your duty to protect these people, even if it risks your lives." Naruto saw that they were beginning to step forward more, straightening their backs. He closed his eyes and got his right hand in position to pump into the air. "Fight with me. Fight me so you could look others in the eye and not be ashamed. Fight with me to protect the family that's huddled together, cowering in fear. Fight with me to fuck up these damn creatures that think they can get away with plaguing our world with their mere existence." He could hear the sound of weapons being brandished. "Fight so when you look upon this day, you do not feel the poison known as regret." He finally opened his eyes. He saw warriors ready to risk their lives. In front of them was the red-haired girl in her brown armor that had a gold stripe in the middle, with her golden boots, and had her shield in her left arm and her spear in her right. Her face was one of determination. All of their faces were one of determination. He pumped his fist into the air. All of you. Let us fight and win." "Yeah." He received a thunderous response. Weapons and shouts were sent into the air. Naruto turned around to see the Grim beginning to slowly move towards them. Not yet running and only the ones in the front moved. Naruto quickly sent orders to the ones behind him. "If your weapons are long range, stay behind and attack from a distance. Focus on supporting your allies and keeping the blows away from them. Those with shields must pair up in groups of 2s or 3s. Nobody is to be alone." The warriors listened and shuffled into groups. Naruto saw that the Grim had crossed a quarter of the distance. He decided to get out his weapons. In his left arm was a circular shield. It was red and had black spirals. The shield was meant to emulate the Uzumaki clan symbol. It was named Kijeki. In his right hand was a broadsword meant to be wielded with 2 hands. It had a golden pointed handguard with a red hilt and a golden point at the bottom. The blade got skinnier toward the stabbing point but had small curves pointing out. It was named Mamoru. They were strange names he knew. But they were meant to show his desires in a way. That he was willing to attack in order to defend what was close to him. He was the first to run out. He ignored his own orders and went alone. If he was going to be helpful he couldn't allow himself to be restrained by comrades. Alone he could go all out, but if he partnered up he would have to slow himself down and keep an eye out on his partner. Naruto let out a war cry as he ran. He heard his allies running behind him. The Grim at the point of the charge was a Beowulf. Naruto jumped on top of the Beowulf and pushed his leg down. This kicked him up into the air while sending the Beowulf straight into the ground, causing spider cracks on the grassy earth. Not long into the air a Nevermore charged at him. He reared Mamoru back vertically before bringing it down quickly. The Nevermore was cleaved right into 2 halves. Naruto used the momentum from the swing in order to push himself down into the horde below. He crushed a Borbodisk, its armor was no match for the raw strength of Naruto's swing. He stabbed the Borbodisk at the spot he crushed and swung it forward. The body of the dead Grim crashed into a trio of Beowulfs. Naruto smacked aside a pair of Borbodisk that spin-dashed toward him. He placed his shield in front of him and ran forward. He charged his chakra and his aura into his shield. A blue wave appeared at his 2 sides which carried and hurt the Grim that were caught in a. None were safe from his attack. Aerial Grim that dove were caught into the wave without a problem. Massive Grim that tried to stomp on him were slowly being vaporized by the wave that only got bigger in order to catch them as well. With the wave big enough to swallow even the Grim and far enough to reach a good amount of them, the horde were being pushed back by Naruto. He wanted to lighten the pressure on the other warriors. Naruto was going to essentially be the tank of the battle. He was taking on the aggression of all the enemies. Naruto only stopped running when there were no other humans would be able to try and help him. He had a feeling that they, or more specifically Pura he thought, would do their best to assist him. He felt it would be too troublesome to quote a friend. Naruto looked around him, he was completely surrounded. He smiled, it looked like the odds were against him. But these types of situations were where he shined the brightest. He slashed a Beowulf that lunged at him. It disintegrated immediately. He quickly jabbed his sword several times and the Grim were too slow to attempt to dodge. One fell. 2 more followed. 5 not a second after. Naruto after his little stab fest turned around and back kicked a bull-like Grim that charged at him. The power of the kick had done its job as it had pierced many Grim before it could stop its momentum. He slashed in rapid succession. Diagonally to the upper left. Horizontally right at the hip. Vertically down. Then Naruto tipped his body forward and lightly jumped. He swung his sword in a tornado-like fashion. He slipped his shield from his arm to his hand and threw it. It cleaved the heads and bodies of the Grim as it circled back as if a boomerang. Naruto punched an Ursa Major in the gut as it flew back from the force of the punch. Kageki finally returned to its master after cutting said Ursa Major in half. He jumped into the air and raised his right leg up for an axe kick. After bringing his leg down, it brought the rest of his body to the ground and a shock wave hit the surrounding Grim. The single scroll from his leg came off. He grabbed it with his left arm during a swing to the left so his shield smacked aside a Grim. He unrolled the scroll in front of him, it rolled meters in front of him as the Grim dodged in belief it was an attack. But they were wrong, it wasn't an attack, it was preparation for their annihilation. Naruto moved quickly. He put his index and his middle finger to the scroll before standing up and doing an upward diagonal slash. To an outsider it happened in an instant, a blink of an eye. There were dozens of Grim polluting remnant before anyone could even notice if they were watching. The Grim in front of Naruto were frozen. However, what really happened could only be seen by someone with fast eyes or a slow motion replay. Just after placing his hands on his scroll and before he could swing his sword, dust appeared out of his scroll. It appeared without the usual smoke that appears when shinobi summon things. It was majestic in a way. The dust slowly faded into existence, beginning from where Naruto touched the scroll to where it ended. When Naruto swung his sword he released his aura to activate the dust. It was incredible if one could see how the Grim were slowly being turned to ice. Rows and rows of the dark creatures slowly froze. By the end of it, the entire side of what was in front of Naruto froze. They were literally frozen in blue ice. Those not frozen were backing away, wary of the warrior that had felled so many of their own. TCH, I guess I can't afford to waste time at such a crucial moment. I prefer saving the day at the last moment, but I guess I can live with just looking like a badass. Naruto released the scrolls around both of his legs and put them around him like a circle. Unbeknownst to the Grim, moving on top of the scrolls were a terrible move. Good thing I decided to keep a bunch of dust and scrolls. Never actually thought it would be useful one day. Naruto thought. Naruto stepped on the ground and an invisible tiny shockwave touched the scrolls. He quickly spread out his legs and swung his sword around his body. The surrounding dust was immediately released after the shockwave. They engulfed the Grim, and if one had a bird's eye view, they would see a rainbow of different colored dust. But the swinging of his sword, the dust activated. A tornado figuratively of elements wove destruction through the battlefield. Fire burned to ash. Wind cut to pieces. Lightning pierced and stunned. In a way, it could be said that Naruto was a musical instrument and the destruction was his masterpiece. Naruto took a look at his surroundings. It was no longer green and full of flowers. Instead, it looked like a wasteland full of craters, brown, and the elements from the dust explosion still showed up. Licks of flames, harsh breezes, visible shocks of electricity showed up around the apocalyptic land. Before Naruto could do anything else, a shadow appeared over him and clouded a good amount of the battlefield. He looked behind to where the shadow was, then rose his head up slowly. I knew something was in charge of this, can't say I was expecting this though. TCH, damn it. Naruto scowled. The battlefield of 1/2 plus or minus 3/4 mu degrees superscript 1 1/2 1/4 plus or minus a umlaut plus or minus closer to the walls. The non-important warriors alongside Pura defended the city with all their will and might. Those with guns listened to Naruto and stayed at the back. They clung to the bottom of the walls as well as the top of the walls. They rained hell upon the Grim at ground level and saved all hunters by shooting the Grim just before they could strike. Those at the bottom ran suppressing fire against the airborne Grim. These long-ranged fighters held no reserves as they used their dust rounds to down the Grim. Arrows rained down upon the Grim. Glyphs appeared halted the Grim with the elements. Bullets cleaved through the bodies of the Grim. Despite all this, parts of the horde slipped through the hail of death, dodging what would have killed them or using their armor in order to protect themselves. At the front of the defense lines were warriors with all different weapons. Longswords, spears, rapiers, axes. They paired up and watched the back of their partner. Despite their being strangers, they protected the other with their life. A side effect of having Naruto make a speech to them. A pair of warriors in green, a male and a female. The male had a rapier in hand, while the female held a square shield and a simple sword. Their teamwork was incredible. The male quickly struck the Grim in their weak points. Beowulf and Borbodusk fell before him one after another. He jumped off the back of an Ursa and jetted down to the ground and stabbed the floor with his rapier. Purple lighting struck his surroundings. He held the position for a few seconds before lifting his weapon and taking a stance. In slow motion, a Borbidisc was rolling at him in the air. Before it could hit him, the beauty in green struck the Grim with her shield. As it smashed into other Grim, she had thrown her shield into the floor and started to ride it as if it was a surfboard. Energy flew from the sides of her makeshift surfboard, it seemed as if she was truly on water. She crashed into the dark creatures, cutting them down with her trusty sword. Seeing a large king Tajustu in front of her, she flipped and her shield crashed into the head of the snake creature. It flinched back greatly from the force of the shield. As she landed on her feet, she quickly dashed forward and used a Beowulf as a stepping stool and jumped. She slashed the head of the Grim right off. As she landed onto her feet, her shield came back to her. Her partner dashed quickly and stabbed the head of the Beowulf about to hit her. "Please be more careful," he said calmly, as if they weren't in the middle of a warzone. She simply blushed and went back to fighting. He smiled and watched her closely as he too rejoined the fight. In another world, these two would be known as a ruler of the kingdom of Shu and his personal bodyguard. Both in DW7 appearance, however, in this world, the two were unknown warriors. Purah was partnered up with a girl her only slightly older than her. Her partner was wearing red armor and had silver armbands. Her weapons of choice were a pair of bladed boots. In another world, this girl would be the leader of her clan in an era of chaos. But here this girl was simply known as Naturally SW4 appearance. Purah had quickly lost sight of the blonde that caught her attention. She couldn't really be blamed since she was jumped by a bunch of Grim. Luckily for her, Natora had kicked away the Grim. The two worked surprisingly well together. Luckily for Purah, she didn't need to really protect as it was keep an eye out for in regards to her temporary partner. Natora was too extremely agile and fast for the Grim. The redeeded Spartan warrior spun her spear vertically. All of a sudden she sidestepped to her left and thrust her spear down, impaling a Beowulf. She backwards and a Beowulf missed where her head was. Quickly, Purah spin kicked her spear while crouching and it spun around perpendicular to the ground. Because of this, the Beowulf that originally jumped for her head was cut in half while the impaled Grim was launched off. She stuck her hand out and the spear landed perfectly. She got out of her crouch and shifted her weapon into gun form. Ignoring the chaos around her, she focused solely on her target. An armored Ursa. Her bullet struck the Ursa in several spots, but she didn't move her rifle. Instead, she used her semblance to hit the Grim in several spots where the armor couldn't protect. Seeing a small shadow over her, she ducked down and a spin-dashing Borbidisc was sent straight to the Ursa's armor. Knowing that both Grim took each other out, she focused on shooting the Grim horde. Natora, who had kicked the Borbidisc into the Ursa, was currently sending a barrage of kicks into a line of creeps. She stopped and twisted her body sideways in a backflip. She turned her body upright in a way that defies gravity and smashed a Beowulf into the ground. When she landed, she put her left foot under the Grim, kicked it up in the air with the tip of her foot, and then roundhouse kicked it into some of its buddies. Natora twisted her body as if she was stretching and then turned into a red flaming hurricane that swallowed dozens of Grim. Her partner took this as a sign for teamwork as she threw her shield into the tornado, cutting the Grim and then shooting her rifle into the tornado. She used her semblance to make sure she struck only the Grim and not her partner. When the two stopped, they went back to back and got into their respective battle stances. Natora swept off some sweat as her leg was bent up. Purah breathed heavily as the duration of the battle was wearing her off. The battlefield stopped as a shadow appeared over them at the same moment it appeared over our protagonist. The Grim roared into the sky. The warriors faltered. To the chapter. Tsunade rubbed her temples as she did the abomination known as paperwork. Even with the world at peace, the cages of the shinobi world could not escape it. Sometimes she wondered if the reason Naruto decided to pull an act worthy of Jiraiya exploring the world because gods know how much the two like to explore in order to get away from the hellspins that were paperwork. Naruto's natural ability to gain allies and touch hearts was about as troublesome to the cages as it was to Naruto's enemies. Why? It was because the brat was simply too damn good at it. Because honestly it was astonishing, a few weeks away into this new land really, but she figured it may as well be another world when you consider the cultural differences, and the kid already makes a new ally on par with the Sandaime Hokage in both age and power. Then, sometime after that, the kid gets a damn job that will be a big help in the future. Seriously, that kid was definitely favored by the gods or something. It wouldn't surprise her really considering the brat had pretty much all the luck in the world. It wasn't fair really, the way that kid gambled he didn't even need to try to win. Yes, what pissed her off about his luck was that it was something that she would have given an arm for. Sigh. She missed the brat. She needed to retire soon. Maybe she should get Konohamaru to take the hat already. She heard Shizune enter the room with more fucking paperwork. Maybe it was time to get shit-faced drunk already. Lady Tsunade, we just received a report from Naruto and some more reports from the other cages on how the new technology is. The last part made Tsunade think for a second. Just earlier from Remnant a deal was made by Naruto with a corporation from Remnant. Who were they again? Oh right, Shinra. The technology that's been being set up in the Great Five Villages was set up surprisingly fast. The real problem was getting the people used to it being there and getting used to using it. Luckily Naruto got Shinra to send their best, they even sent some of their own workers whose jobs were akin to soldiers or bodyguards. A blonde guy that looked a lot like Minato and Naruto, a light-hearted black-haired guy, a woman with pink hair lighter than Sakura's, a loner in a red scarf and a gun, and a teenager with white hair that was also pretty smart. Each one went to a different village, probably insurance or whatnot, alongside a bunch of technicians. Anyways, what was going on right now? Oh right. Report. Naruto. Got it. Anything else could wait. Well, let me see it, Shizune. The black-haired assistant handed the paper to the buxom Hokage. Reading the report, Tsunade rubbed her temples once more. Damn it, Naruto, your luck really is messed up, isn't it? She growled out lowly. Seriously, as lucky as that kid was, he really got into some fucked up situations. Ruby hummed happily as she walked next to her sister on the streets. They deemed that it was time for some sisterly bonding before the eldest was off to Beacon. She was seriously jealous of her sister for being able to go to Beacon already. She was sure that her sister was gonna have tons of fun. Yang would be able to go on tons of adventures and meet awesome people with even awesomer weapons. Wait, was awesomer even a word? Well, Ruby decided that it was now. Ruby wished she didn't have to wait 2 years to get into Beacon. If only she were older. Anyways, Ruby decided that today should be a happy day. Who knew when she would get the chance to be with her sister again? Yes. Today was going to perfectly normal and full of joy. Nothing would change that. The sister of the girl in red looked at her sister in amusement. It seemed the younger girl was off in her own world again. It was no wonder that she was awkward around others. The two passed by a small group eating outside a restaurant. What they would hear next would be important. Even if they didn't know it yet. Hey, have you guys heard? The city of New Beginnings was surrounded by a giant horde of Grimm earlier. Well shit. That would definitely put a damper on their sisterly bonding. The sisters stopped to listen, they weren't the only ones as others in the streets or at the tables eavesdropped at the group conversation. Well, what? The others in the group shouted. The girl with a forgettable face and plain clothes asked how many people got out. The guy that mentioned the news shook his head. None. That made everybody gasp. The guy continued, because they never needed to. This confused everybody. They never needed to. They were all about to be killed and they didn't need to leave. The guy smirked, I can see everybody's confused. Here, this is what happened. He pulled out his scroll and a projector hooked up to it. Luckily some reporters were recording from afar. The video played. And the people watched. Ruby and Yang were jaw-dropped and wide-eyed. Boah. They said quietly and simultaneously. They weren't the only ones. Everywhere around Remnant, this situation was repeated. At parties, offices, schools, homes, hell even bathrooms. People were watching the video of the event that would shake the world. And that was only the beginning. John looked over to the video in front of his family of. Bren sat next to Nora and they looked onto the person they both felt would make an impact on their lives. Bren, are you? Nora could not help but ask. The boy that she was best friends with nodded. Yes, Nora, I feel it too. No other words needed to be said as they looked on. Weiss watched with a shocked face. This man, if he can even be called that, for he was certainly greater than any man, was truly incredible. While she looked on in awe, a pit of jealousy formed within her stomach. If only I could do a fraction of that. She wouldn't be so smug then. The girl thought morosely. Blake watched on as a man fiercer than any other fought. Looking at him with observant eyes, she could not help but feel that the man was not human. But at the same time he just did not feel like a faunus. He's so powerful. She felt like she barely scratched the surface of what he could do. Osmond and Glinda watched closely with slightly amused eyes. Osmond chipped in, that boy truly does not know the meaning of take it easy, does he? Then he drank out of his favorite mug. Glinda shook her head slightly. That man just cannot help but make others worry for him. But I suppose someone has to worry as he simply can't. Nothing else needed to be said as they simply enjoyed the show Naruto gave them. This is seriously fucked up. Naruto thought. Luckily the monstrosity was still some ways away. This would hopefully give him the chance to strike back. He could feel the morale of the warriors falling quickly. Naruto sighed. Shika would definitely find this troublesome. I am inclined to agree. The warriors fell back to the walls that blocked off the city. Despair was heavy in the air. The Grimm did not attack them. They stalked the warriors that were massacring them so easily not that long ago. They howled and roared, sinking the spirits of the defenders even further. How the hell do we defend against that? What is that thing? Oh gods. Whispers went around as they looked at the monster. They truly had no idea on what to do. Should they fight and risk dying for a cause that could be useless? Or should they run and live, damning the lives of so many others? A certain deed was the slowest in retreating. Hera had a conflicted look on her face. What should she do? Her warrior pride and honor demands that she fight. Odds against her be damned. But the human and teenager sides that lie within her told her to run. To listen to her instincts and leave before she could die. After all, she had so much to live for. Why die here? The fact that nobody had abandoned their posts was surprising. With such low spirits and their instincts telling them to run, it was a surprise that they were conflicted in fighting and running. But to any shinobi, perhaps it would not be a surprise. After all, Naruto could inspire armies into fighting against sure death. The defenders were simply still affected by Naruto's charisma. What are we supposed to do? Despaired the warriors. Swish. Naruto appeared out of nowhere. Once more taking the spotlight as they all stopped and stared. He didn't look different from before the start of the battle. While everyone looked even a little frazzled or tired, he looked like he just went out for a walk. It actually kinda pissed some of them off, but it also inspired some of them. In particular, despite being on a battlefield, some female warriors couldn't help but admire that about him. You guys look down. Naruto gave a small smile. Someone from the crowd screamed out, of course we freaking do. Look at that monster. How is anyone gonna fucking kill that? Oh, don't worry. I'm not expecting any of you to fight it. In fact, just ignore it completely. The crowd looked confused. Understandable really. The guy that became the de facto leader was telling them to ignore something that was going to kill them. After all, I'll take care of it. He gave them the patented Naruto smile. Their jaws comedically fell to the ground. Their eyes were wide dinner plates. Hera stuttered, www what? Just place your trust in me. Please. Naruto gave them a smile worthy of a king. Or rather, a legendary hero. Naruto didn't have too much of an internal debate of what he was about to do. Using jutsu may be a bit risky, but Naruto tended to not care about such things. Really all he needed to do was be careful not to use anything too powerful or too recognizable. Naruto turned to the horde. It seemed that they were waiting orders from their alpha. He dispelled a shadow clone that he had on the side. Just like when he was against Nagato the first time, he had shadow clones absorb nature chakra. Before anyone could see any differences in his appearance, he pulled out a familiar three-pronged kunai. With a little jazz hands, there was suddenly kunai in between his fingers. He threw them to the horde, and the kunai blurred before suddenly there was even more sent into the horde. The crowd behind were confused at what that was supposed to do. It looked cool, but it had no effect. Not yet anyways. Naruto walked forward and spoke loudly. Don't blink, because if you do you'll miss it. He dropped something to the ground and pulled out his sword. But that he disappeared in a mix of yellow and red. The crowd looked on as flash after flash after flash occurred at the horde. The crowd were awed as the Grimm were eliminated. Suddenly Naruto flashed back in yellow and red. See, told you that you could believe in me. He smiled. When Naruto had flashed into the horde, he used all the nature chakra he could immediately gather at its full potential. Using it to support his attacks, the nature chakra was sent straight into the bodies of the Grimm, even if he just punched them. Naruto closed his eyes and breathed in deeply. He didn't really like using the Hiraishin. Yes, it was completely badass and useful, but besides traveling, he preferred to keep it under wraps. The reasons were because it disoriented Naruto too much, unless it was just a single kunai, the rapid change in surroundings would become too much. He could only do it now because he was able to just close his eyes and go to town on everything around him. The second reason was because Naruto didn't really want to be known as something like the second Flash, he wanted to be known as his own person after all. He only really learned it to honor his dad's legacy, and it would be really useful and badass to use. Besides the looks on the other shinobi faces when he showed them. Priceless. In any case, Naruto thanked the ability to gather nature chakra. Nature chakra was the chakra of the world. It was the production of its life. Grimm were irregular beings. Abominations. It is only natural for them to have a weakness against the very nature that they plague. Aside from the monstrous being, the horde had been wiped out. But there was still no cause to relax. With another fear-inducing roar. More and more Grimm slowly began to show up. Luckily for them, it would not reach the point that it was before the battle. In simple terms, even if the warriors were still outnumbered, they would not be outclassed. The crowd became restless once more. Wow, did you see that? That was incredible. Holy, if he keeps that up, we might actually get through this. Naruto may have learned to use his head more in his maturity. But he still preferred to let actions do the talking for him. Which was exactly why he did what he just did. Fight, my comrades. Fight and never feel the regret of running away. This is what we've trained to do. Okay, so maybe that last part wasn't true. He trained as a shinobi and to be Hokage. But that didn't really matter anymore. Naruto didn't really care about being Hokage nowadays. He wanted to live up to the legacies left to him. To his father, who was once called the savior and was a hero. To his mother, who shared the same burden as him and was able to find happiness through it. To his master, who believed he would find true peace. To his fellow Jinchuriki, who were given such a tragic fate but fought against it regardless. To the lives of his comrades, who died for him. Hell, even to his predecessor Asura and Hagoromo. The former whose ideals were close to his own. The latter who put the future of the shinobi world into his hands. Yes. He was truly not allowed to fail. Not with what was on stake should he do so. Come on now warriors. Do not falter. Do not retreat. Do not allow these foul creatures to rule your minds. Together, we will fight. Together, we will win. And together, we will live. The defenders looked onward at the horde that was slowly trying to recover. Weapons were raised. He's right, I didn't train to be a hunter just so I could run away for what I trained for. If I run, my family will be disappointed. And so will I. It's time to give it my all. The voice rang out from the back, fellow defenders. Fight on with your full power. You have nothing to fear so long as we are looking over the battlefield. It seemed the voice belonged to someone who commanded the long-range fighters. Echoes of bows being strung and rifles being loaded could be heard. Another voice rang out, this time, from the front. Those on the front lines fight without fear. For we shall defend you from the fangs pointed at your back and the strength that may fall you. This voice seemed to belong to someone who defended the attackers. The sound of shields being brandished could be heard. The last voice rang out, this one familiar to Naruto. We of the front lines will not be outdone by our comrades. We shall make sure your efforts are not in vain as we fight to our limits. The frontliners roared into the air. Naruto brought his right fist to the air. The victory. The crowd of fighters did not waste a beat. The victory. Naruto looked at the towering monster and flashed away in a combination of red and yellow. Perhaps it's time to go all out. Hera ran towards the horde at full speed, her companion from before steps in front of her. If not for the situation, the Redeed had to compliment her fellow female warrior's leg strength. Natora was fierce. She smashed Grim after Grim into the ground with her monstrous legs. She crouched down and stuck her right leg out in a sweeping position, unseen to the eye, horror was gathering. Swoosh. Natora looked up and saw a spin-dashing Borbodusk heading straight at her. She could only raise her left arm and hope her attack would charge quick enough so she would not be too damaged. Clang. Purah had slammed her shield straight into the Borbodusk, knocking it aside before it could strike her ally. Purah then looked at her ally and nodded before going back to work on attacking the Grim. Natora closed her eyes and prepared to unleash her attack as quickly as possible. It wouldn't do if she allowed herself to be upstaged by another after all. A few feet away from the warrior was Purah, who was going to town on the surrounding Grim. Slash after slash. Smash after smash. Shot after shot. Purah did not let up on her assault. She used her semblance as much as she could. To manipulate her shield to defend. To manipulate her spear to strike. To guide her bullets to the target. She didn't want to admit it, but she was tired. She usually only used her semblance for small things. In battle, she hardly ever needed to use it so much, and she was now paying for that decision. She jumped backward to avoid being hit by an avian creature and quickly destroyed it. Upon slight reflection, Purah realized that she was paying little attention to what she had been slaying. Perhaps it was time to up her training regime. It wouldn't do for her to not pay attention because of exhaustion and accidentally hit a comrade, now would it? As Purah fought strongly like a warrior goddess, her mind wandered off slightly to the blonde that she exchanged a few words with before. The blonde was a strange person. She knew him for no more than an hour, and somehow she felt as if they knew each other for even longer than that. Looking at the man made her want to fight by his side. And for some reason she could feel as if their combination of red and blonde hairs would look good somehow. She wasn't too sure about that really. Naruto was attractive, but was he good enough to be the man she committed herself to? Please watch out. A voice broke Purah from her thoughts. On instinct she cartwheeled to the was a good thing she moved out of the way as her ally unleashed her charged attack. Natora rolled forward and stopped her roll by balancing on her hands. She stuck her legs out straight, so now her body was perpendicular to the ground. Crimson aura started to swirl around her legs at a fast rate. She swung her right leg down at the Grim and stayed off of her left foot. The aura from her right leg was swung out in a red arc that destroyed the Grim that touched it. Then she pushed off the ground with her right leg, and when she landed in a different spot on the same leg. Natora looked around and saw she was surrounded. In a graceful spin she kicked out her left leg. The energy stored was shot out toward her surroundings. The Grim failed to get away. The two warriors looked at each other and gave polite smiles. They were a pretty good team. Growls from the horde brought the two back to their warrior faces and they prepared to slaughter more Grim. Naruto bent his knees a little in preparation. He had resealed his sword but kept out his shield as he had a feeling he would need it. He looked up at the heads of the Grim in front of him. 75 meters tall. 90 meters wide. A fat body with large legs. Black scales. 10 heads in white masks with sharp edges and red scar-like tattoos over red piercing eyes. Each head identical. But sharp teeth, he may add. That are dripping with green liquid. A Hydra. A grim damned Hydra of all things. Why did he always get the hard tasks? Couldn't he be attacked by a cute little bunny for once? Not that he couldn't take down the Hydra, no matter how legendary or how strong something is, he will win. Compared to Kagaya of all people, everything is a cakewalk. Well, no point in complaining, he thought. After all, the Hydra was beginning to attack. Wait, shit. Naruto jumped back as the closest head snapped at him. Naruto couldn't help but wonder if he should stop with his little inner monologues. Then he shook his head and grinned, nah, if I stop then life wouldn't be so funny. Naruto smashed Kageki into a Hydra head on his left as the long, serpentine head lunged. He decided to review what little information he knew on the Hydra. They tended to live in swamps or caves. They were rumored to grow up to 100 heads, but he didn't remember how they actually got up to that point. Seeing them outside of their nests were rare, but it has happened before, but they were usually taken down with aircrafts. Apparently there were legends or something that someone took one down on his own, but there was one thing people could agree on: if you wanted to kill a Hydra, either bring big guns. Or bring a small army to fight. Naruto reared his right fist back and rose his circular shield to the front. Wham! A head slammed into him and Naruto started grinding his legs to the floor to keep him from flying. Naruto allowed himself to be dragged by a couple dozen feet before adjusting his shield so it faced a little to the left. Naruto held back a wince as the grim head scratched his shield. By moving his shield slightly and bracing his legs, he allowed the Hydra head to skin past him. Before the head could retract, Naruto punched forward with the fist he had reared back. The scales of the Hydra were no contest for Naruto's fist, he slammed it straight into its neck, piercing it wholly, and Naruto's arm was embedded straight in it. Naruto's shield slipped down his arm and onto his shoulder. With his now free left hand, he grabbed the neck to prevent it from moving. He closed his eyes and channeled both his aura and his chakra into his shield. Suddenly a circular energy blade popped out from it. He crushed his right leg into the neck so he could keep it still and release his left hand. He slipped his shield into his hand and cut into the thick neck with the disc extending from the shield. The cut was small, but he could work with it. Taking out the leg and pulling out his arm enough so only his hand was inside, Naruto grabbed onto the neck with both hands and pulled. The sound of flesh coming apart was unmistakable. Naruto grinned and continued ripping the giant neck with his bare hands. All of a sudden he kicked his shield that was still embedded in the monster. It ricocheted back and bounced off of two heads that dived at him, making them just barely miss hitting the neck he was ripping off. Idly, he noticed one of them looked pretty desperate. It was the one he was ripping off. Feeling he was taking long enough, he channeled his chakra into his hands and gave one last tug. But the feral look in his eyes. He saw the neck rip apart and decided to take the momentum from the rip and slam the now disembodied head right back where it came from. Hahaha. Where are you hitting yourself? Oh right, because of me. Laughing maniacally, Naruto gave the Hydra no time to relax as he beat up the heads of the Hydra with their own. He smacked each head several times, and if Naruto didn't know any better, he'd say that stars were hovering around their heads. On instinct, Naruto dropped the head he used as a weapon and jumped back from two heads appearing from in front of him. He barely registered that it disappeared the moment it hit the ground in black smoke. He was more focused on the severed neck, a part of the Hydra. Scratch that. The severed neck. Instead of seeing disgusting monster flesh, he saw the heads growing out of the neck. Naruto didn't realize that a Hydra could regrow its heads. His mind already began to analyze, seeing the obvious in that they regrew two heads. If one is ripped off, could it just replace heads? After all, if he smashed the heads into pieces, could the Hydra simply detach the head and grow new ones? But that couldn't be right. If they simply regrew their heads, then they wouldn't be so easy to take down even with aircrafts. Naruto thought about how the Hydras were taken down before. What did it involve? He quickly remembered. It was fire. That was one of the ways. The heads of Hydras would be burned. Another way, if he remembered correctly, would be to attack its body. However, the bodies of the Hydras were huge for a reason. Because of their large size, you needed to deal a lot of damage to the body of the Hydra in order to kill it. But the thickness of the black scale armor was much more thicker than the ones in the neck. In fact, Naruto would bet that Hydra necks were actually grown to be weak. After all, by losing one head, it would grow two more, and that would make hunting humans even easier. Naruto would have to aim for a weak spot, the body. It wasn't a weak spot per se, however that was the only surefire way Naruto had that would kill the Hydra. Quickly forming a plan, Naruto put away his shield. Then he began to concentrate, his blue eyes began to flash into red. All 11 heads lunged at him, and a tremor ran through the battlefield, tripping both Grim and human alike. The heads slithered back as they no longer saw the pesky human that denied them nourishment. The humans' hopes began to drop a little as they saw only smoke where Naruto used to be. A certain red-heated girl felt true despair for a few seconds. When the smoke finally disappeared, what was there was Naruto with 2 new objects on his person. On both of his arms were giant turtle shields with numerous spikes sticking outward in all directions, both taller than him. These shields were modeled after Isobu, the shy turtle-tailed beast. These were one of the 9-tailed beast weapons Naruto made in order to channel the chakra of the ones they were based on without making it too obvious. The shell-like shields, rather than be held in his hands like other shields, were attached to his arms. They were flexible, so Naruto could bend his arms if needed. They only covered the sides of his arms, so if one stepped into Naruto's personal space, they could see his arms on the inside of the giant shields. After seeing how tough Isobu's shell was, Naruto decided to model the 3-tailed weapon after that. Just like the giant turtle's shell, his twin shields were basically indestructible and practically absorbed the force of attacking objects, so Naruto wouldn't feel the force from the blows at all. Glaring at the heads of the Hydra, Naruto decided it was time to put his plan into action. Slamming both shields into the ground in a ground-pound fashion. Water exploded from beneath his feet. And a huge tidal wave swept toward the Hydra. Naruto quickly jumped on the wave and started to ride it toward his prey. The head swept from his left, he blocked it with his shield and only moved a few feet. The head flinched back in pain, and it could be seen that the spikes from the shield did some damage from the number of holes in the head. Naruto and the water began to smoothly sweep in a circle around the Hydra, smooth ripples appearing over the water rather than huge tides. He made several laps around the Hydra. It made several attempts to hit him, but they were usually blocked or he would maneuver around using the water in cool ways. He made a surfer wave appear and rode upside down on the water around ahead. He moved quickly zigzag. He used the water to make a wall of solid water and would sometimes turn it to ice before smashing it with a head inside. After even more circles and destroying the heads in the process, Naruto made several notes. 1. The necks either destroyed or cut by the shield showed that Biju chakra interfered with the regeneration. 2. The Hydra was getting really pissed by this point as he could see its breath coming out. 3. The next step for his plan was complete as there was now a mini tornado made of water surrounding the multi-headed monster. It was big enough that it was taller than a little above the height to the Hydra. And last but not least the number 26. That was the number of heads now attached to his prey. Half of those heads lunged at Naruto. He jumped onto the back of the Hydra, by now the water was encased around the body of the Hydra and restrained a few heads, either by becoming rope-like structures or tapping the head inside the water. Naruto gripped his fist and he heard the sound of the spikes on the shield crackling and extending. Okay then Mr. Many Heads, let's see if you can stand up to the 3-tailed turtle. Or if you will be swallowed up by water. Naruto slammed a fist into the back of the Hydra. He pulled back and saw a hole where he punched as well as corals growing out of the hole. He repeated the process in the same spot 2 more times. Corals up to his waist has grown into the Hydra. The ability that Isobu's chakra gave him was useful. Not only was he given control over water like Shikaku's gave him with sand, but he could also cause corals to grow wherever he punched with the spike that stood out at the tip where his fist was. He brushed aside a head that slipped out of the water with his left shield. Quickly he slammed his right shield into the head and immediately a giant coral sprouted from its eye. He jumped to the neck of the one he punched and went to town on its neck while he was airborne. The neck could no longer move as the coral encased it completely. He kicked of the neck and jumped between the heads and the body. He gave a shockwave-inducing punch each time to the point where you could see the air vibrate from the impacts. It looked eerily similar to Rock Lee's Hidden Lotus, only with corals appearing from the hits. Naruto landed on a coral that appeared on the main body. Around him was the Hydra, now unable to move because of corals and the water. Time for the finisher. Naruto thought. The wave of greed has appeared. It is time for the misfortune to be swallowed up by the never-ending sea. Naruto chanted. The water began to vibrate harshly. Sleep within the depths of the sea. Forever. Maelstrom. The water pooled around the Hydra, lifting it with a harsh whirlpool. The Hydra was both being crushed and slashed at the same time because of the corals added into it. This was Naruto's plan, trap the Hydra with corals, then deliver a crushing finisher with the power of Isobu and himself. The Hydra crashed into the ground and slowly vaporized. The water from his finisher did not disappear as it slammed into the remaining Grim, either killing or throwing them back into the forest. Allow the sea to sweep you up. For the sea shall drown you with its breath. A blue glyph appeared over the water, its crest was a swirl, the symbol of the Uzumaki clan. Then it disappeared and the water became more wild and gained more power. Sounds of the sea and the cries of Grim could be heard. Then it ended. Naruto took a look at the battlefield toward the forest. It became very empty as the Grim swept into the forest did not come back out. He looked back and saw no movement at all. Both Grim and human Franus did not move as both were in awe. Suddenly Grim began to retreat. Goliaths trumped back. Deathstalkers skittered away. Nevermores flew. And then everything else simply ran. Naruto allowed them to leave and instead focused on something else. The less intelligent and younger Grim did not retreat, rather, they continued on fighting. They did not comprehend what was done. Only that the strongest of them fell. To the creatures, this simply meant that the Hydra was not fit to live as it was prey rather than predator. Too bad they didn't realize they were prey as well. Naruto prepared his semblance. The last time it was used was the train incident with Sephiroth. He was surrounded by aura. It was pure power and that was something everyone and everything could see. It was gold and blue in color. Then it pulsed out to the battlefield. And the Grim still stood. Everyone was confused. All that power and it did nothing. But they knew so little. He smiled and the effect of his semblance showed itself. The defenders could feel themselves being stronger. They too were now shrouded in the same coat of aura that Naruto did. Suddenly a redeed sprouted into action. She slammed her spear into the ground and all the metal bullets and arrows that littered the ground everywhere on the battlefield flew up and dove at the remaining Grim. This spouted a chain reaction as now other defenders began to attack. Glyphs and shockwaves echoed through the battlefield. Naruto continued to smile. This was his semblance. It was nothing fancy. He couldn't transform, cause fires or anything. Just like Naruto himself, his semblance took on his desire to help and protect others. It was akin to the time he shared both his and Kurama's chakra during the war. When his friends heard of his semblance, they were surprised but not too shocked about it. It fits you, they said. And Naruto agreed. He simply called it support enhancement. Everything about a person would be stronger. Their physical prowess, their aura levels, the power of their semblance. By the end of it, there were no more Grim littering the area. Naruto lifted his right arm which still held the shell-like shield and pointed it straight up. The action was followed with the right arms of his new comrades. Today we defended. And today we have won. He shouted incredibly loudly. Yeah. For tonight, people would see this blonde-haired man and not know his name. But they knew exactly what to call him. A hero. A legend in the making. But little did they know, he was a more than just a legend in the making. He's great friend and ally. And an even greater man. He's a shinobi. He's a Jinchuriki. He's a legend. He's a sage. He's a true hero. Chapter end. To help get back into the swing of things. Have a little interlude. While Naruto's up over at Remnant. The world of shinobi doesn't exactly stop time-wise. So just like the Osborne files, have a little something. I got back from Florida and I actually have some important stuff to do. So I want to finish this and maybe sovereign. I've actually had a little self-evaluation of sorts over my trip and I decided that I have been wasting my life away by doing nothing and I wanted to change that. I watched this little Monty Aum compilation on YouTube. So I have decided that I should be working harder and more, so I will definitely get chapters out more while I work for my future. In the end that is something to honor Monty and what he would have done I guess. So won't be too long till you get the next chapter. I have seen some of the info at RTX Online about Crow Winter so yay. The chapter that was supposed to be next included rwby and the black-haired Yang. For those who don't know, from there the actual canon rwby would start, but the release of Crow I decided to use him instead of the still unknown Raven. In this chapter you will see a little of how each world stands with each other. I had to add stuff from Type Moon and Legends because we still don't know the full extent of what hunters and huntresses can do, but I believe canon-wise, they at least match up to Jounin level. Interlude start. Tsunade sighed. She thought she could be done with this paperwork, but that damn Kakashi was just pawning the work to her, even though she passed the role as Hokage to him. Things have changed since the event known as the war that ended all wars. For one thing. The villages have become more technological outside of war, a way to escape the era of hatred. It was amazing really, having thought wars made her believe that such peace was not possible, that only tolerance was. But Naruto he changed that. Being the hero of the world made him the best choice in concerns of dealing with both people and threats. Naruto just had a way to make people trust him, even those that should be his enemies. And as far as threats were concerned well very few could push Naruto, at least nowadays. Sasuke Uchiha was one of them, and even then it wasn't certain that he could win. While both Sasuke and Naruto have added more skills to their repertoires, Naruto ultimately held the advantage with all his stamina and chakra. Here's also the fact that the last Uchiha was no longer the last Uchiha. The night Naruto left, he decided to throw a prank in the form of a nationwide part night. On that night, Sasuke got so drunk that he slept with Sakura. And no, they did not just sleep. Anyways, Sasuke got Sakura pregnant and he didn't want to make mistakes in raising the child. The end result? He stayed in Konoha to raise his kid right. Sakura herself was ecstatic that her love stayed and was grateful that Naruto got him drunk. Speaking of Naruto, Tsunade gave him quite the lecture when he somehow got into a sleepover session with some amount of women he knew. Including but not limited to Akari from the Dragon Blade fiasco, Aoi who Naruto met during his training, Shizuka who Naruto fought with, Koyuki from Snow Spring, Tsunami from Wave, Shion the priestess, and the former queen of Rorin Sarah and her daughter. How Naruto was even able to have a sleepover with all those people was beyond her and anyone else. In the end nobody could really give him any grief about what he did. He saved the world, and before he saved the world, he saved people. And when Naruto saved people he really saved them. Naruto had a way to get into people without really trying, and if he tried, nobody could really resist him. Tsunade was just happy that he at least cautioned restraint when it came to sleeping with women, because there was no real women that could say no. And now that he had fangirls, he would have no trouble in betting others. Back to the Uchiha, he was genuine in wanting to repent, he didn't become a Konoha shinobi again, but he swore to himself that he would fix his mistakes and work towards the world that Naruto envisioned. He didn't even get a replacement arm in his hopes of repenting. That didn't mean he wasn't a complete asshole, because he still was. He was just more bearable now. For Naruto's other friends, they were pairing off and improving in their own ways. For one example, Tenten and Rock Lee were closer than ever due to the efforts and sacrifices of Niji Hyuga and Mido Gai. Naruto had also been training and spending time with the two of them more than before due to their specialties. Tenten would help Naruto get a better feel for weapons. Lee would simply help Naruto ensure he wouldn't get sloppy in his other areas with Sasuke. Hinata Hyuga had gotten close to Naruto ever since the Tenari incident that had broken the moon for both sides of the world. But unfortunately Naruto had yet to accept her feelings. To the dismay of Tsunade and many others that shipped the two. Strangely enough it seems the two were keeping a secret that only those two knew. As far as the other side of the world goes. The place known as Remnant was no giant continent like the shinobi nations and was instead split off. Technology-wise, it was hard to say who was ahead of who. Remnant had advanced more in terms of vehicles and weapons, but they actually needed it, whereas shinobi could use some of the weaponry advancements vehicles were not very necessary and would actually take away one of the now few uses of shinobi. All in all, the Gokage would say that, on the chance of war occurring, the shinobi would win. Remnant may have many competent warriors that were close to the best of them, but the shinobi did as well and more. If any existed at all, hunters and huntresses did not reach the cage level and the beyond cage level that was reached by Naruto, Sasuke, and few others. Hell. If Tsunade was being frank. Either or both of Naruto and Sasuke would be able to end a war on their own. Naruto hoped it wouldn't happen, but fear was a powerful motivator. And considering that shinobi were the ones to break the moon, Remnant had every reason to be afraid of them. But as time was going on with Naruto over in Remnant, he mentioned people that could definitely give them a run for their money. Well, Tsunade couldn't currently recall their abilities. Their names were a pair of old men called Sun Wukong and Maxwell, the father of a girl named Per, Ozpin who is Naruto's new contract, and two of his co-workers known as Peter and Glinda, Crow who Naruto works with in his disguise, some girl named Fall, and a someone by the name of Tex. While she was on the topic of being run for their money. The Grimm that existed on Remnant were nothing to be afraid of unless they were very old or one of the more dangerous species. Strangely enough they hadn't appeared on the shinobi side yet. Something that Naruto was looking into. Lady Tsunade. A creak from the door appeared from her office. It was Sakura who seemed to be recovering from her pregnancy. This is the information on how development has been going around the villages. A stack was placed onto the desk. She swore she would kill Kakashi when this was over. As she looked over the papers she saw that the people no front as that came from Remnant were being a great help to them. It seems being treated as equals reaffirmed their belief that coming over was a good idea. She said it once, she'll say it again. Naruto had some skill when it came to getting into people. Whether it be literal or not. Many shinobi couldn't even bother caring that they had animal traits. That existed in shinobi as well like the Inuzukas and more extremely as well the Aburam. Lady Tsunade, more paperwork. Sakura had to be fucking smiling. Tsunade cursed. Why did Naruto have to be more like his master and gain the urge to wander the world? Then he could be the Hokage and deal with this bullshit paperwork. And. Also don't worry the real chapter is coming soon. Linda knocked on the door. Naruto please come out. This is rather unbecoming of you. He responded. Nope. Not coming out. Not gonna happen. What is the problem? She said to herself. Ever since Ozpin said the teachers needed to come out together for an introduction Naruto decided and said to them. Fuck that shit. Naruto was simply self-conscious about the fact that people on Remnant were like fucking giants. They were tall-ass motherfuckers in his opinion. He was rather pleased about the fact that he grew to be one of the taller shinobi and tallest in his generation. Being in Remnant was bringing back memories of when he was short. And being a few inches shorter than Glinda was slightly embarrassing for Naruto, even if he knew it was shallow. His thoughts were broken as his door was blasted away. "Glinda, what the fuck?" She walked in and grabbed his collar. "What is going wrong?" she said quietly. He told her his insecurities and when he was done, hugged his face to her chest as he lied on his bed. She whispered to him. "There is nothing to worry about." Minutes passed and she comforted him. He felt better. "Thanks, Glinda." She smiled deviously. "Of course, beloved." Naruto got up only to realize that Glinda was holding him down. He looked at her nervously. "We still have some time before the speech. Perhaps we should have a little fun." She said this as she reached lower. Let it be known that Glinda was an actual adult with desires unlike what students tend to say due to her cold attitude. One thing after another happened and he was on top of his mostly clothless girlfriend. He didn't register that the same was for him as Glinda had used her semblance to remove his clothes. Ozpin walked in. "Naruto, are you UAHHHH?" Ozpin was blinded seeing his teachers about to have a little quickie. Naruto and Glinda got dressed in embarrassment. Let's just go get this over with," the headmaster said. Students would later note that he sounded odd at his speech. They were better off not knowing it was because he was freaked out seeing his blonde teachers in the middle of fulfilling their carnal desires. Now chapter start. A few days back. Naruto stretched in an arena. This was the last battle he accepted from the party. He couldn't wait to end this. Begin Ostmahauka Kauku no Redise Ost election. Naruto then gave the sign of respect to his opponent. Who was his opponent, you may ask? Purinaikos. The so-called invincible girl. He was sure it would be a good fight. He would hold back his skills naturally, but he would be taking her very seriously. Knowing what her semblance was, Naruto didn't take out a weapon. Naruto otherwise would have brought out his tambo. These were okay to bring out since he only used them out of his mercenary disguise. That slip up in the clearing the day he met Ozpin and Glinda was only because he knew he was alone. He still wasn't sure what to call them. Tenten would get on his case if she found that out. That girl took weapons way too seriously. Watching the timer on the side go down from 10. Naruto took his stance. Legs spread. Arms up. Fists clenched. People never realized it, but Naruto had improved leaps and bounds from when he was a genin, even before he left Konoha. At his new skill level, Naruto could defeat even masters like Rock Lee, Neji, or Guy. Specifically, it would be a 3-2 in his favor. It all depended on how the fight was going to determine if he won or lost. They were currently in the arena in the city. After this Naruto would go to the temple for a reward or something. Naruto knew his opponent's fight style. She used her semblance to manipulate the odds in her favor during a battle. Thus, victory was always on her side. But victory was not on her side today. Alright then, champion. Let's see what you got. If it wasn't already there. Put the music at 117. The word election essentially starts the fight like a video game. Purah barely had enough time to process the match starting before a blur of red and gold rushed at her. Naruto threw a single jab first. Purah blocked it and switched her spear to sword form. She swung at him multiple times, but he kept backhand springing multiple times. Then on the last backhand spring, he kicked Purah's weapon holding arm, which knocked her off balance. Landing on his feet he grabbed that arm and turned her around, so he had her arm in a painful lock. He knocked her to her knees with a kick to the legs. Somehow Purah was able to shift her weapon to gun form and shot at him. He jumped away to keep himself from getting hit any longer. Little damage to his aura or no, it would be too arrogant to just let himself be hit. Purah held her rifle over her shield and fired. Naruto didn't miss a beat and started to run to the side. Purah might be a good shot, but the speed of an expert shinobi was too much for her to focus on. The clicking sound rang as it showed that Purah used up all the ammo. Immediately Naruto turned a quick 90-degree angle and rushed while Purah shifted her weapon to a spear once more. He jumped off his right leg and used his left to knee her spear up. Then he outstretched his right leg and kicked her shield, sending her several feet away. When both bodies landed, Naruto jumped high in the air and maneuvered his body to where he was looking up and saw Purah on her back on the ground. Naruto took ninja wire out from his pockets and attached them next to Purah. Pulling harshly he ended up crushing the arena floor and got himself stuck in the ground as Purah rolled out of the way. She quickly took advantage and did a combo on Naruto. Whenever Naruto blocked her sword the shield came bashing at his head. And whenever he took hold of her shield she stabbed his chest. Eventually Naruto got sick playing pinata and grabbed her shoulders and slammed his head into hers. Both were disoriented by the hit. Naruto's back nearly touched the ground while Purah stumbled backwards. While Naruto worked on getting himself out, Purah was able to take a glance at the aura gauges. She was at 64 while Naruto was at 92 still. She quickly figured that he had so much aura that she needed to trap him somehow. Naruto looked at the wires in his hands before attaching them to her legs. All of a sudden fire and ice began to visibly conduct itself through the wire. Purah could see the frosty mist and the orange flames trickling to her. Tossing her shield, it disconnected the wires and bounced off the ground to Naruto. Cracking out the wires like a whip, he hit the shield back to its owner. He ran at her while spinning his hands, so the wires wrapped them like bandages. Once more they began tricking with the same elements as before. His left arm connected with the shield and mist sprung out. His right arm connected and black smoke came out. Purah tried not to let herself get sucked into his rhythm. She spun her spear so it was parallel to the ground and slung it across her shoulders and onto Akou Acute 01's indentations, allowing her to stab at Naruto while also protecting herself. And watch the Achilles vs Hector fight from Troy and you'll see what I'm trying to say. When Purah saw him readying for another punch, she realized she wasn't observant enough as wires wrap her around her spear and shield arm. Her shield arm was burnt while her weapon arm was frozen. Taking advantage of her shock, Naruto decided to finish it in one last shot. He was disappointed in the so-called invincible girl. But she was young. He had assumed that she would be able to give him a challenge like a true huntress. But in the end she was just a child after all. There was a limit to how far fighting for sport and honor could take you. He hadn't realized he said this out loud as he slid behind Purah and gave her a German suplex. Sending her aura levels from 23 to 4. Naruto would later realize that this fight would help Purah take another step closer to being an adult. To being a mature fighter. Naruto lied her down as he swept his forehead. Then all of a sudden he heard clapping and a red-deeded woman entered the arena. Greetings. Child of prophecy. Fuck. It can never be simple with him, can it? In the present. Sometimes these white fang guys annoy me. Granted, I know they are pretty justified, but come on, do they have to be such a hassle? Naruto thought. Naruto was in his Akatsuki uniform and mask. He leaned against a wall in a gray hall with banners of the white fang symbols everywhere. These guys are seriously conceited, even more than Sasuke. Who the hell puts their own symbols every 10 feet away from each other? Perhaps a group trying to prove something no matter what. The voice came from his left side and he looked. You both sure took your sweet time. The two looked at each other. Raven, Crow. The person to his side was a person wearing a shallow-cut black dress and 5 necklaces with an assortment of beads, a red girdle belt, and some gauntlets. She had black thigh-length boots with a red splatter pattern. The thing most noticeable was a fearsome full-face mask that resembles the face of a creature of Grimm. The mask had a demonic appearance to it. The woman had, in Naruto's opinion, some fine legs. Not that he would tell Raven that. What can I say? Sometimes a girl needs time to look pretty. She mused calmly as she took off her mask. Under the mask was a rather pretty woman. She had long midnight black hair and a blood-red shade color for her eyes. She had a pretty face in the blonde's opinion. Considering that you wear a mask, that is highly unlikely. Naruto breathed out, his voice distorted because of his mask. Aw, that hurts me. Really it does. There was not a single hint of hurt in her voice. Just quiet amusement. Easy now you two. Came from the man next to Raven. He was wearing a grayish-looking suit with black pants. He had a red cape on his back that went to the middle. Crow, why don't you have your weapon? In return he got a small smirk and glare. It's your fault for breaking it, it's still in repair. Naruto sweat dropped and apologized. He had forgotten about his fight with Crow that destroyed the weapon when Naruto forgot to hold back. Don't worry about it. Besides, a good hunter has to be able to fight without their main weapon. Despite his words, he pulled out an incredibly bland scythe. It didn't even look as if it had a gun on it. For now. Raven and Naruto deadpanned him. They got a smirk in return. Whatever, it's about time you got here. Winter and her little sister must be on edge right now. Because it was asking too much to pay a friendly, non-fiasco visit to a friend. Naruto thought exasperatedly. The two girls were kidnapped the morning of that day. Luckily Winter Schnee was able to call Naruto for help just before she was captured. The two met when Naruto was on business as himself and not as Akatsuki. Naruto thought he could save the two by himself, but he thought it would be easier to have some help just in case. So he called up Raven, who he met and fought during a misunderstanding where they had the same objective, but that's a story for another time. Crow and Naruto met due to Osban. Anyways, like most people Naruto meets, they quickly ended up hitting it off after a small rocky beginning. Oh, I'm sure the two princesses can last a few more minutes. Raven moved her mask in front of her with her right hand as if admiring it. Raven was right. In the end both heiresses were huntresses. Or in Winter's little sister's case, one in training. Naruto himself could vouch for the skill of Winter, but not so much of Weiss. I'd prefer not making my friends wait for me in a terrorist jail cell. Naruto retorted as he left. They ran through the halls quickly. The two Brandwins were able to keep up despite Naruto not running his full speed. The trio of fighters took up a simple formation instinctively. Naruto was in the front leading due to him knowing the layout of the base the best from previous raids. His fighting style allowed him to enter a stance and attack immediately, no matter the hallway size or the size of his weapons. None of which were out. From there was Crow behind him to the left and had the backup side laid out in the back, close to touching the ground. He was ready to jump over Naruto and slash away if trouble arose. He was right-handed so he needed room for his enormous scythe to be swung. Raven was the farthest back and to the right due to her weapon. Her sheath was on the left so she needed room to swing it out. Its size made it easier for her to defend from the back and the weight of her rotary chamber sheath ensured that she had to slow down to cut down on her use of energy. No doubt about it. They were efficient, stylish, and awesome. Those would be the thoughts of anyone watching them run. In fact, it was the exact thoughts of a White Fang member who held coffee in both hands as he exited the coffee room. He was right in front of them. Oh balls. The poor Faunus barely realized that they were about to blitz his ass into the next century. Naruto acted quickly by spinning on the tips of his shoes. He swept the legs of the Faunus with his right leg, making him fall forward. However, Naruto used his momentum to continue his attack. Since Naruto was spinning, he was able to quickly hit him with his left arm just below his wrist. The White Fang member had been completely stopped in falling forward and was not harshly being pushed backward with his body parallel to the ground. The assault continued as Naruto punched diagonally down to the left with his right, then quickly in the opposite direction with his left. The body of the man flinched harshly with each hit. On Naruto's left swing he didn't let the body of the Faunus fly out and instead kept his fist connected to the body. He grabbed the left leg and after a spin launched the body onto the ground. The force of the throw launched the body back up, but Naruto left it alone and kept running. Instead, Crow picked up where Naruto left off. With the scythe already in motion the moment Naruto started the blitz, the gray-haired handsome man slashed upward, twirling his body slightly in the process. The body of the White Fang member flew up to hit the ceiling, but Crow followed through his slash and his scythe slammed into the ground. No longer was the scythe wielder facing forward to where they were running. Now he was facing backward with his scythe into the ground. In 1 second the body made contact with the ceiling, making a sickening crunch in the process. And in that 1 second Crow balanced himself on his right arm alone on his scythe and now his body was perpendicular to the scythe. He kicked the still coffee holding Faunus with the back of his feet, launching him into Raven's line of fire. He had no sympathy from Raven as she mercilessly decided to finish him off. The quick draw of her sword sent the Faunus flying backward and rather than place her red katanish blade in the sheath she continued going on the assault. Several slashes later she ended up kicking out with her right leg because she was slashing downward. This sent him into the ceiling where she showed her physical prowess by running on the walls. First wall running on the right wall she ended up on the ceiling using her momentum to keep her from falling down. This allowed her to put him out of her misery as she stabbed her katana into his gut and dragged him across the ceiling with his stomach facing the floor. Flames trickled across the top of the hallway. Slowly, the sword was disappearing as she grinded it while following the lead of Naruto and Crow. When the sword disappeared the Faunus fell onto the floor harshly and passed out due to the pain. Whereas Raven gave a show of acrobatics and landed on the floor, Naruto kept leading the way to the elevator and thought, did that guy really deserve an overkill at that level? Unfortunately, he didn't, but that didn't mean it couldn't be done for a good show. As they were led to the elevator, Naruto had time to think to himself. So he decided to reflect upon the party that wasn't as half as good as his goodbye party from Konoha. A few days in the past. Boy oh boy. These were quite the festivities in the city. How did he come to this conclusion? Well, the people were partying for one thing. It was almost surprising at how much and how hard they did so. But when you think about it, they just witnessed a miracle happen in which a city was not overrun by Grimm. In fact there were no fatalities, but instead major or minor injuries. It can be nothing else but a miracle. Humanity may have come far from their ancient times, but the fact stood that no city was ever truly safe from being overrun. Anyways, getting back on topic, both men and women alike were perhaps at their liveliest right now. The terror, if Naruto remembered that right, were some women that were currently everywhere, conversing with anyone, dancing alone and with people, and handing out food and drinks to people that weren't at tables. All shops were currently closed down. Anyone that served food were serving it outside at the tables. Those who fought were sitting together on a long table set together. They showed the same camaraderie from earlier that day as they laughed and drank and ate. Naruto was the only one sat at the head of the table. It was an honor everybody accepted as one that belonged to the blonde man. Having already eaten his fill from the selection of Greek food and otherwise, Naruto sat back and drank from his golden goblet. It was apparent that the wine served tasted rather good. Before he could continue those thoughts he noticed he ran out of wine. A tap on his shoulder showed one of the girls that have been hanging around him since the party started. She poured him some more wine, and as he smiled at her in thanks, she fainted. Naruto brought his attention back to the table, ignoring how the fainted woman was being dragged away and placed into the pile with the other girls he smiled at. To his right and closest to him was Purah, who he learned was a 4-time champion of Mistral's regional tournament. The tournament itself held different divisions. Team battles, in which a group of 3, 4, or 5 would fight against the equal number. Battle Royale, which was self-explanatory. The solo battles, which reminded Naruto of the Chunin exams. The most intense, in Naruto's opinion, were the school battles. Where the schools of Mistral selected individual students and competed against each other to show off the badassery of their schools. It also reminded Naruto of the Chunin exams. Obviously, for each of the divisions, they had different divisions. It wouldn't be fair to put up someone who's say 22 against someone who's 15. The difference in training was just a bit too much. Naruto had actually ended up agreeing to spar with a fair amount of the warriors, including Purah. Purah herself wasn't quite sure what to make of the older male. He didn't seem to treat her any different than anyone else after learning she was a champion. He didn't really admire her looks like some of her fans, but she knew that he thought she looked good. Unfortunately, Purah thought rather morosely, there didn't seem much of a point to getting a crush on a man that she would likely never see in person ever again. Yes, there was always the option of exchanging information and going on dates, but she would be going off to Beacon to continue her training as a huntress while she learned that he was a teacher, so he would be as busy or even more so. So the likelihood of them both having time for each other was low. Besides, Purah thought, this man can have anyone he wants. Even if I'm confident in my looks, I don't quite think I can make him interested in me. Now, you may wonder, why would the incredible Purah Nikos be not confident in getting a man, even if he's older than her? The reason would be because he was literally making women faint for him by smiling. While he didn't seem the type, it was completely possible that Naruto liked having women throw themselves at him. And Purah had too much pride to resort to that. Well, Purah thought and laughed at a joke one of the men said from across her. Let's not ruin this night with such thoughts. Well, Purah was off thinking about relationships. Naruto was going through his own kind of conundrum. What am I missing? He wondered. When he compared it to his going away party, only one other thing was missing besides a hot marsam with all those hot wom. Oh he realized, it's a speech. That's right. A lot of the time Naruto would end things like that. He did so when he left the shinobi nations. He stood up with his wine glass up for everyone to see. The mere act quickly got everyone's attention and the music and other sounds stopped. Naruto cleared his throat before he started. This was gonna be important. He couldn't fuck up. He couldn't foo. Crunch. Naruto looked at his hand and thought, shit. Distracted by wondering what he should say, he ended up crushing his goblet of wine. Acting quickly, he took the goblet of the man across from Purah. Hey. The man had heavily tattooed arms and without any facial hair looked younger than what he was supposed to be. He had 2 blondes on his lap. Or more precisely, he had a blonde on his lap, someone who is no doubt his wife due to their rings and equally tattooed arms, and she had what was a young child on her lap. Despite his objection, they were all smiling. His wife laughed a little. Here you go, don't cry in front of all these people. She handed him a beer from out of nowhere. Naruto gave a smile at the family trio as he went, ah yeah. That hits the forearm. The spot. The cute kid just giggled at the interaction. It was interactions like these that reminded Naruto why he reached out for P so much. Now, I'll try to keep this short so we can go back to partying. Today, we've proved ourselves. As warriors and as humans. We were able to do what has never been done before. A complete and utter successful defense against the grim. We may never know what the future holds, but today proves that our future can be full of hope and peace. Rather than having a toast to our victory, let us toast to the future of hope and peace that both we and our descendants will have. He raised his drink and the rest followed. They chanted the toast together and drank. And for the rest of the night, they partied. But Naruto's contribution was not forgotten, and thus would the man be gifted with something that would help shape his future. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts as he realized they hit the lowest floor where prisoners would be held. It would do no one good if he wasn't paying attention to what was going on around him. Luckily his emotion-sensing ability would ensure that he would never be snuck upon really. Not many had the ability to completely wipe their emotions when they attack, people always feel something when they attack, and that worked in Naruto's favor. Right now he was sensing a lot of fear and a bit of desperation in one of the rooms. He led the way, both of the Brandwins were hot on his trail. Naruto hurried as he could also feel some burning anger and sadness coming from one person. Usually anger and sadness did not mix very well. Okay you two, we're here. Prepare for battle. He uselessly cautioned. Roger. They said in unison. It was almost strange how they obeyed him like a squad leader. Naruto wasn't sure he would ever be able to get used to people looking at him like a leader, like a Hokage almost. Naruto didn't really lead anyone during the war, it was more along the lines of him acting alone with other people being around to provide assistance when necessary. Okay, sure he was able to inspire the army and get everyone acting, but he saw that more as being seen as their hope rather than as their leader, even though many seemed to disagree with him on that notion. And now he was going to have to teach kids who will look at him like a leader or even more so. If there was one thing he was happy about in becoming a teacher, it was the chance to have his ideals and legacy passed on, ensuring a better future, and even having a close pupil-master relationship like he had with Jiraiya. Still, Naruto hoped he wouldn't have to deal with too many problem students. He wasn't sure how he would solve the problem besides taking a page from Iruka and being patient. Raven and Crow were on the sides of the door with Naruto right in front of it. He stuck out his gloved palm and it was held a few inches away from the door. Let's get this show started. The door was blasted away with tremendous force and speed. Both Raven and Crow ran in first with Naruto walking in behind them. He was in no rush as he could tell that the previous murderous intent that he felt earlier was no longer there. As Naruto surveyed his surroundings, he was surprised to see that the jail cell wasn't at all what he expected. It was dark, but that was because the lights were off and jail cells weren't bars, but instead just metal boxes to place people in. The squares had enough space for two people to spread their arms wide out. In front of Raven and Crow were Winter and Weiss, both of whom were kneeling in front of two White Fang members who had masks. And in front of them was a red-haired man in a suit and a typical mask. Insert Soul Leader Justin Law theme. Step up. Naruto admitted to himself that he seemed rather familiar for some reason, though he couldn't exactly place where from. He meets and sees lots of people after all. Now what do we have here? The man said. Naruto looked over the man, he seemed to be relatively calm now, though that could change at any moment. I take it you are here for the shnees? He asked. No, stated. The Brandwins in front of him didn't respond though the smirk on Crow's face guaranteed a smartest remark. We might be. Naruto decided to take things slow. He began to drop tiny particles of dust from his gloves beneath his cloak. Well, I never expected that I would ever meet the famed Akatsuki, the one who's being known as the indomitable mercenary. Oh yes. That's one of the names being we're starting to call him too. Honestly, Naruto wasn't even bothering to keep count of what people call him anymore. He has so many names in both personas that he no longer bothers to keep track of them. So, is there a reason that you decided to kidnap these two? Not that I really mind, more work for me. Naruto joked a little. He ignored the little glare that Winter gave him through the blindfold. She probably would have said something if not for the piece of cloth in her mouth. Weiss didn't say anything or do anything on the account that she was afraid of the situation she's never been in before. One that she knows have killed family members and workers for the company. If Naruto was being honest, he wasn't too worried about them. And while that sounded horrible, he felt that way only because he felt confident that he would save them. Naruto lifted his hands out of his cloak and waved them around harmlessly. Now, I'm sure we can solve this diplomatically. The red-haired man snarled. As if we would ever be fine simply handing over these shnees. Perhaps this will teach a lesson to those damn racist humans. Naruto found slightly humor in the hypocrisy that the man called humans racist for what they do when he was doing the same thing to them. I see. In that case, there's no need to hesitate. He shouted out suddenly, grab M. His two allies jumped to grab the sisters, while the White Fang guards rushed in front to block them off. The man with red hair was bringing out his weapons but stayed in place. Naruto crushed both his hands, and the dust that he had been weaving into the air came into effect. The guards were encased within a block of ice and suddenly kicked away by the two Brandwins and stuck to the wall. Before the sole remaining enemy could react, a glyph appeared under him and ejected him upwards through the next few ceilings and into a new room. Naruto followed up by showing his unnatural ability by jumping up with no assistance whatsoever, bringing the dust with him. Different colored sparkles came out from underneath his cloak. Crow and Raven untied and helped the sisters. Raven, however, quickly disappeared before they could see her. HMPH. It's about time he got here. And I see he brought company. Winter said as she dusted off her clothes. Luckily, the dust Naruto weaved into the environment allowed her to use her semblance of glyphs. She wore white clothes, which was a shni thing, and had this strange pair of boots. That's how Naruto would describe her. Who is that man? He was far too carefree for this situation. Her sister Y said. Unlike Winter, who wore a suit-like clothing, she wore a dress which Naruto would say was impractical in battle. Sister. He was not as carefree as you think. He was setting up the battlefield the moment he walked into here. He has a mastery over dust that is quite beautiful. She explained to the less calm of the two. It was true, the moment they let him release dust into the air was the moment they lost. It can be said that strong warrior fights when the battle begins, but a great warrior fights before the fight begins. Weiss had to admit, the man whoever he was ingenious for being able to do that without anyone noticing. Not that I mind being underground and stuff, but maybe we should leave before the whole building collapses on top of stuff. Crow suggested. Winter scowled. Crow. Much as I would like to argue, Ice Queen. We best be getting out of here. He quickly cut her off. He held a good point, the room was shaking from whatever battle was going on a few levels above. Naruto was standing straight as he watched his opponent support himself with his sword. He would admit the Faunus was quite strong if he could withstand some of those blows. Tell me then, what exactly is fueling you to stand up and fight? We both know how outmatched you are. Whether or not he was referring to the White Fang and their methods or the battle was up for air. I fight. The man lifted up his sword and his axe. Because I can't let those humans get away with what they've done. The red-haired man rushed at him while encased in flames. The body of the man and his weapons morphed into a demonic appearance. He slowed down with his axe and met resistance in the form of an ice block shield. My best friend is dead because of them, and I had tell his little brother that he died. The man was shouting and morphed more and more. Gaining strength too, Naruto noted. I am Richter Taurus, know the name of your killer, damn mercenary. The shield he was using broke and he was hit backwards to the wall. I'm trying to avoid doing it in the middle of the story, but I couldn't resist. Bet you thought it was Adam but it not. Aha. Anyways, just showing more tales of influences. It will be a bit rushed because I want this chapter out already, but just think him as another arc with a backstory of a known character to make things easier if you want. Richter was extremely angry thinking about the death of his friend, Aster. Telling his little brother Emil that Aster died due to the prejudices of humans tore him up inside. He refused to let anything happen to his younger brother Adam, and so he joined the harshest part of the White Fang. The part that attacked the humans directly. Nothing will stop me from my revenge. Not even you. He yelled. The demonic-looking Faunus seemed intimidating, but that was nothing for Naruto, who could face down Madara, Kagaya, and Kurama, not in that order. Naruto snapped his fingers, and the dust exploded into mist. Playing hide and seek now, are you? Unfortunately for you, he brought up his sword. I'm not willing to play. He turned around and slashed. Flames cracked as Naruto had jumped away to avoid being skewered. A deep slash was on his cloak now. Richter rushed out as he engaged Naruto in close combat. He stayed close and made sure that Naruto didn't have much room to move, so he couldn't use the dust. He jumped up and threw his axe at the ground. It exploded and sent Naruto back. He landed, grabbed his weapon and rushed to Naruto. He locked the airborne Naruto into his clutch and rushed through another wall into another room. He let go and Naruto was thrown into a soda machine where grape soda splashed over him. He groggily got up. The Faunus was tough, no doubt. By the time he got himself composed, Richter was almost within attacking distance. Richter was stopped dead as something hooked around his leg. Looking back, he saw an ice tail that led to the inside of the cloak of Naruto. What? The tail whipped and sent him straight to a wall. Naruto watched as his opponent ran out of the small crater and to him. Snapping his fingers once more, ice formed around Richter's feet and arms. Then Naruto hooked the left arm between his right calf and thigh, pulling on the horns. He pulled Richter off balance. Jumping off his left leg, he kicked the male with said leg off into the air. Landing in a handstand, he pushed off and appeared behind Richter after he crashed into the ceiling. This move is from a friend. Glowing red solid dust bindings appeared around Richter. Naruto threw Richter into a bear hug and they began spinning harshly on the way down. Primary. Lotus. Naruto jumped out from the smoke cloud that appeared. Always wanted to try that out. You're an incredible man, but do you think your friend would want you to be like this? Look at where you've ended up. You said it yourself, Aster was killed and you were forced to tell his younger brother. The same brother that right now you should be protecting. But instead you're in an entirely different section of the world. Ready to die for your revenge. You think you're a hero. Don't fucking bullshit me. This is the problem with you Avenger types. You always think that what you're doing is something you're supposed to do. Shut up. Surprisingly enough, that didn't come from his opponent. Turning his head, he saw a familiar looking enemy. I don't appreciate what you've been doing to us, mercenary. And you will leave my brother alone. Adam? Richter was surprised that his brother came. I came to have a talk about our current situation, but it seems we can take care of it now. The two began to walk towards their enemy, the cloud from the Lotus technique almost gone. Adam needed to defeat the mercenary. He was ruining their chances for Faunus to have better lives. They have been through so much discrimination. For his brother and his kin, he won't lose again. When the battle began once more, the two brothers seemed to have their own rhythm of attack. Clearly, this wasn't their first rodeo together. Richter would block off and disrupt Naruto's attacks, and Adam would take those second openings and slash. Gunshots and whirls were heard as a red blur would beat up a cloaked figure. An ice spike was sent to them from behind and Adam spun diagonally. cutting the spike in Naruto in one move. Naruto knew he was in trouble now. Adam was a lot stronger than when they first fought. He grabbed a locker that was right next to him and threw it in between the two. They jumped away and Naruto appeared in front of Adam. He shot a fist out only for it to clash with Adam's katana which glowed red and Naruto was blasted away by it. Naruto needed to get back the momentum, but how? Luckily it seemed the two brothers were currently arrogant enough not to finish him off immediately as they walked to him. A shot ran out and hit Adam. Unprepared, he was knocked forward. This was his chance. Suddenly, it seemed as if a menacing aura appeared over Naruto. Dust was converging onto one point. Him. Naruto was glowing a furious blue shade of ice. He was going to go easy on the men, but he was pissed off now. I'm done playing nice. One might wonder why Naruto was such a master at dust manipulation. A skill that would take years for anyone to obtain. Shadow clones was one answer. The second was a bit more complicated. Naruto had large reserves in many things. Power, techniques, stamina, chakra and even aura. It was strange since aura is constant. It cannot get bigger or smaller. However, a person can change the effectiveness, the quality of their aura. It was similar to chakra in that regard. In other words, an expert can use less for more. Aura was the manifestation of the soul. And it can be said that few have stronger souls about as strong as Naruto. Naruto, and by extension his soul, have gone through hardship. Such trials have made everything about him grow. Maturity, skills, everything. Dust was manipulated by the soul. For Naruto, a person who understood himself so well to accept his own darkness, is it not obvious he would master a skill that requires his own soul be used? Naruto swung his arms up and ice pillars shot up encasing the limbs of the brothers. He kept it up for several seconds until he closed his mask eyes and spun his hands around with dust visibly sparkling off of him. Pushing his arms out to the trapped brothers. Spikes formed from all around and bombarded the criminals. He didn't let up one bit. Eventually a few minutes passed and he stopped firing. TCH. That was too close for comfort. I'll say. You getting soft or something? Don't tell me stuck-up Glinda is getting to you. He rolled his eyes at Crow, the one who helped him. Trust me. She isn't so stuck up in bed. Ahem. He looked over to see a disapproving Winter and an awestruck Weiss. Time to go. An anticlimactic adventure as far as Naruto was concerned. Nothing too crazy happened. Unknown to him. Physical shadows began to emerge slightly from Adam who was still conscious. He nodded over to Crow, who was in between the sisters. Receiving a nod in return, Crow chopped the neck of both sisters. What are you foo? Huh? The two were knocked out. Taking off his mask, Naruto shook his head of some sweat before nodding to nobody in particular. Raven came out of nowhere and a portal appeared, large enough to hold them all. Naruto closed his eyes and begun to think deeply. A few days in the past. Naruto was led deeper into the temple by the oracle. A red-headed woman named Pythia and she wore some type of toga thing. It didn't really hide her figure and Naruto was surprised at the lack of modesty she had. Naruto only stared a little bit, a good body wasn't something that couldn't be seen on any Kenyachi or huntress. Besides he had Glinda to look at. And he didn't need to just look with her at least. Apparently he was being rewarded for his heroic deed. Naruto wasn't humble enough to not accept as he knew full well that a good deed doesn't go unrewarded. And the kid part of him was hoping it was something cool. Besides he didn't want to insult anyone by not accepting and what's the worst that could happen? Worst comes to worst it's something he'll never use but best comes to best he will absolutely use it. Besides Naruto did hear the legends surrounding this temple so maybe looking into it is worth something. There were things on the walls, tapestries he believed they were called. He couldn't quite understood what they meant but he was sure to keep them in mind. Eventually the two mated at the bottom of the temple in silence. This here is a sacred weapon gifted to us by the gods, we wish you to have it in accordance to the gods' wishes. Naruto was amazed at the weapon. He could believe it was divine alright, especially after dealing with the power of the sage and Kagaya. He picked it up and felt a surge of power. Then, as if he wielded the weapon for years, he began to spin it in his hand and swung it around. Also, please take good care of my sister. This made Naruto choke and drop the weapon, he knew she looked familiar. That Pura could have said something when he was being led here. Naruto still had questions for her though. But wait, why do you have something like this in the first place really? She gave a quaint smile. Allow me to enlighten you of the history of Remnant, Sage of Shinobi. You will find that just like your world, myths are more than just myths. And what he heard blew his mind. He was going to have a talk with Osban. In the present. Inside an office. Naruto was still fundamentally the same person as he was as a kid when he learned the Hiraishin his thoughts were similar to what they would be as a kid. Which were it as bad as and I wanted? Second most being that. If it was good enough for my father it's good enough for me. Besides, it wasn't that big a deal when you consider that all of his feats in general kind of overshadowed the fact that he can use it. Besides, if he has to go all out against someone, it would simply be easier to enter his strongest mode and run. He was faster than teleportation in his final form after all. The younger Naruto didn't really believe in fate, but as he learned about Hagoromo, Asura and even the Child of Prophecy that Jiraiya and other shinobi believed in, it shook that belief up rather badly. But even if he changed his belief slightly, it was nothing more than him maturing further. That's what he thought. He still didn't put much stock in fate, of course. It was a way for cowards to put the blame on something else, and Naruto was no coward. But that didn't mean it was necessarily a bad thing to believe in it, as it could give hope as well. Naruto would say that he believed in destiny more than fate. Because destiny would always be shaped by one's own hands. Why was he having these thoughts? Well, for one thing, he just learned, or perhaps the right word is confirmed, that things in the past are important to know, because myths and legends are always more than that. Crow, James, Glinda, and Ozpin have told him of the maidens and the Brotherhood. If he was being honest, he was pretty miffed. Them keeping the maidens isolated, though it wasn't a harsh isolation, pissed him off. And the maidens did remind him a bit of Jinchuriki. The power. The secrecy. The painting of targets on their back. And the Brotherhood, as far as he was concerned, were making the same mistakes that the shinobi did. Naruto? A concerned voice rang out. He looked at Glinda and calmed down. They thought they were doing the right thing. And they were at least not too bad in comparison to the shinobi. Naruto was mature enough to realize that things couldn't always be so bright and dandy. I'm fine. I just need to. He scratched his cheek. Process it all, I guess. But this would explain why Amber and Raven could do all these crazy things. Kinda wish they told me when I asked. He stopped and looked at Ozpin. But wait. Were you planning on letting me in on it? I mean. It is sorta your fault I met them in the first place. The smirk not quite hidden by the mug told him his answer. James decided it was time he said something. Naruto. I am sure that you disagree. With some of our methods. But it's for the best. We are just acting in the best interests of Remnant. Not only that, but if your suspicions of the real threat looming over our heads is true. Then it will be for the best if we all work together. Naruto sighed while Crow took a drink. Which would mean breaking down the barrier over the elemental nations completely. He raised a hand to catch what Crow threw at him. It was a drink. He took a swig of it. Not that it would help too much. When he was done, he asked a question. Hey James. If Winter is so trustworthy, then why isn't she here? He replied quickly. Winter can be volatile. At times. Much as I trust her and her skills. I do not believe this secret should be told to her just yet. She is hot-headed at times, knowing what we know now may have her act rashly. Then James changed the subject. Moving on to other matters. Naruto, you did well in capturing the Taurus twins. The new Elysian Knights and Paladins and my soldiers should be enough to transport them. Crow audibly scoffed. Is there a problem, Crow? I think it's laughable that you think those hunks of junk will be able to transport two highly dangerous terrorists. But don't let me rustle your jimmies. Jimmy. That is enough out of both of you. This is not the time nor the place for this. Glinda's crop struck Ozpin's table. Naruto sighed and leaned on the new weapon he got. Crow stretched against a wall and scratched his back. Glinda looked at Naruto with eyes of warmth. James tightened and untightened his hand. Ozpin drank from his mug. Naruto let out a sound of frustration. That's enough then. I'm tired of all this serious talk. He walked over and grabbed Glinda's hand and pulled her with him. Huh? And Naruto. Me and Glinda are going on a date to relax before we have to deal with students. This topic can wait for another day. Our enemies won't be able to act too soon anyways. The elevator closed and the men looked at each other. The end of a chapter that should have come out months ago. And because it's been a while, have a teaser for the future. The next chapter would be out sooner than this one though. What are you kids doing here? Sorry boss. Lady Tsunade sent us here to act as students. That hag. Naruto muttered. Teams of Beacon sat in shock as they saw their teacher was a hero. Listen here, you little shits. You might have assumed this class would be easy because I'm a new teacher, but if I decide that you don't shape up your asses out of Beacon before you can count up your mistakes. I'm sorry Ozpin. But there's really nothing I can do for Amber. And you're positive of this, Naruto? Do not think I would let her just be in this condition. This puts a wrench into the plans. But I'm sure we can adjust. Mercury, Emerald. It's time we call in the cavalry. That bastard gets in the way too much. Language Mercury. It's a mere setback. He cannot be there forever. Not if we mess with his priorities. Perhaps, then. You will finally allow me to take care of him. Very well then, Orochimaru. He's so powerful. You should have never tried to mess with the Biju or the maidens. What if Naruto has Sage Chakra and rwby? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.